All right. Well, we can start then. So we have this is episode the fourth unique boys. Every time different people it seems at this point, which is fine. The roster's ever growing. Taking applications online. The This is got delayed because I had COVID because that's the times we're living in. And then this wouldn't really be happening if it wasn't for Scourge being delayed, which is I didn't see coming, but you know, categorically it's happened in the past, so here we are. I believe the reasoning they said was because they wanted to go on holiday or something.
Summer vacation for the employees or something, yeah.
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 Still not sure why they didn't just take vacation when everyone else took vacation, but that's fine. So that was a couple week delay on Scourge.
They did.
Yeah.
They came back on January the 4th, I think. They made a news post saying
Yeah.
they're back in office.
Yep. 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 They're back. It's official. Most of our team has returned. Excited to return and officially wish you a happy new year. Eager to continue development on Path of Exile 3.17 expansion and Path of Exile 2. Patent pending. And can't wait to show you what we have in the pipeline. Yeah. Yep. I don't think we can talk about Path 2, but it's kind of like just shooting loads in the wind. It's just fucking. Yeah. It's forever. I mean, so something I want to say before we start talking about all the various topics is there's this kind of forever caveat on any discussion. I've been adding this pretty much to a lot of things we talk about in stream, whatever, which is any single topic that is discussed when it comes to changes to Path of Exile, in any way, shape, or form, negative or positive. They kind of have like full carte blanche when it comes to time to do anything because it's all just hinged on Path 2. Any change could be made in Path 2. Any amendment could be made in Path 2. Anything we complain about could be fixed in Path 2. Anything we love can be taken away. No one knows. So everything should be viewed in a way through that lens, which is kind of makes everything ultimately pointless to talk about until it's released. But that being said, we press on and hope it comes out in. I have my new benchmark is 2024. I'm saying early 2024. I could see.
Sounds about right.
I could see it happening as of right now, but we've had no updates since Ultimatum, really. So, who fucking knows? You guys anything you want to add about anything Path 2 related before we begin? Feel free.
Not really. Like you said, 2024. It's weird to not be able to even estimate whether that seems too soon or too far. Like it's just we have absolutely no clue.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah. You go first, May.
I don't feel too bad about it. Like I'm enjoying the game anyways. I'm not sitting here waiting for PoE 2 to enjoy the game again. I'm fine.
Yeah.
So they can take their time. I'm okay with it.
Yep. I mean, as long as it. I feel like it's hard to say whether this is like one of those things where it's impossible to say whether Path 2 is negatively affecting Path 1 because of just like why fix something in Path 1 where it's being redone in Path 2. But yeah, everything will become contextual when Path 2 is eventually released. If it's released, who knows at this point? I don't know. It's hard to say. The one thing I wish we had, and it's like my last thing I'd say about Path 2, I just wish we had more updates, even if it's just like minor things, like whatever we're working on. And the only references I'll give is that other games in the same genre, whether it's Last Epic or even Diablo 4. Diablo 4 has quarterly updates they put out that I'd like to shit on because Blizzard bandwagon, but most updates they do and most things they're working on looks really, really promising, which is nice. And it's nice to see the quarterly updates, which is every 3 months. So it's not even like it's that frequently, but it's more frequently than once a year, maybe. So I'd like to see just more things like that. And it can even be just written up things like, hey, we're working on audio design at this point for Act 3 or just benchmarks for reference. That's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm expecting them to do it in a 2 or 3 weeks when they announce a new league.
I assume, which is a yearly update though, because that's
A yearly
pretty much
update,
that's kind of brutal.
Last thing we knew was them developing Act 2, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna guess they're on 4, maybe 5 now, because there's 7.
That's optimistic.
It is optimistic, but it's been a year, but it's been a bad year as far as like production, I'd assume.
They're gonna show some Act 3 stuff, I imagine, and that's about it.
If
Maybe
that's the pace though,
shifting stuff or something, or maybe new ascendancies, that kind of stuff.
That means we just hit 2022, so that means a year an act. That's brutal. If that's the pace.
that does mean that by the time it releases, I'll have plenty of time to play because I will be retired. So that'll be nice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I might be in a different country. Who knows? By then, I might be in prison. I don't. It's like it's so far. But we digress. Okay. Scourge. Scourge is still here. Forever Scourge. Not quite Legacy League, but not quite the 8-month league, but it's going to be almost a 4-month league. A couple things we're going to talk about is Scourge. I guess we'll move this one to the forefront because this was the most important question in Path of Exile, which seems a bit dumb to even ask, but I think it's honestly the most important question in all of Path of Exile and the only important question there ever is, which is, are we having fun in Scourge? So we'll let Manny go first because I know he did a bunch of Scourge stuff early on.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird league because it feels so optional, completely optional actually. Like you can completely ignore it for weeks and just play PoE. But I kind of like it. Like it's nice not being forced to do it like every single map or not even interact with it at all for a while. And whenever you're having some urge to Scourge, you can Scourge.
Urge to Scourge. That's a license plate. What about yourself, Shak?
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people when they ask me how I feel about a new league that I'm like a bad person to ask for that because I just love every league that they put out. Like this is my game, so I play it no matter what. The Scourge maps are awesome for me because I'm not full time right now. So in the time that I do get to play, especially since I've moved into SSF completely, I don't get to do a lot of like juiced endgame farming typically. Also because a lot of my stuff is aimed at like newer players. So Scourge maps were a great chance to feel like I'm just naturally getting a bunch of juice stuff, and it was awesome. But it's probably legitimately been 6 weeks since I've Scourged an item.
Yep,
it's so long.
Same.
Valid. There's parts of Scourge I really, really enjoy. There's parts of Scourge where I think, how did this even make it off the development table? And I'm so conflicted. Overall, if I had to give it like objective, like non-numerical ranking, to me it feels like I think it's one of the worst leagues. And we'll go into detail about that a little bit. But the parts I have fun with, I have a lot of fun with. And then the other parts I either totally ignore or I'm just like, why the fuck does this exist? So I just try to focus on the fun parts. But either way, even like Shaq saying, like, it's new shit, it's fun, I'm playing Path, so ultimately it's irrelevant. That being said, the past month I've been in Standard because it just feels like kind of like why a little bit. So to that point, I guess we'll ask, what and where did you farm in Scourge this league? Like, what were you doing in Scourge? So we'll do Manni, then Shaq, I guess, for all the questions. So I don't have to keep saying that.
Yeah, it took them like around a week to heavily buff the quantity and rarity from Scourge monsters. I think it was like 8 days in.
Yep.
And it became clear that this will be a good Magic Find league right away. Like, post-patch, I ran one map, pushed it to 250 rewards, and I found more uniques than I found in like the 6 hours before that. It was crazy.
Yep.
So I knew this would be a great league for Magic Finding, and it didn't take more than a day for streamers like SoMate to popularize the tower meta. And I've been doing that quite a lot. I think I farmed it for around 10 days to get my Headhunter. And then whenever I felt like farming some tower, I went back to it. It's been great fun. Loot explosions are always fun, right?
Yep.
I actually didn't get into the tower farming almost at all. When it became clear that the majority of the fun for me this league was like the Scourge maps as far as the new league content goes, it's turned into pretty much a league where I've been in chat, like testing out builds with people, testing out. I think we've done like 3 different overhauls to my one cold dot build. But aside from that, I've been using it to test out a ton of different league mechanics. So in terms of farming stuff, I've been helping show people. It was a great league to kind of step back from the league mechanic for me and show people like hey, in SSF, how do you farm essences? How do you farm, basically each type of league content that you might want to get gear from. I've been doing just a lot of kind of demonstrations more than farming my own tower gears.
Nice.
This league definitely has been carried by the base game. I feel like base game
Yeah,
regrets.
it's hard. I've been trying to view it through like a separative lens between like, oh, there was tremendous buffs to the base game and like the stacked currency, which honestly revamps. It's kind of depressing how much that revamps the feel of the game, but it honestly is like is pretty. It's a huge different experience if you played Path a long time, and then you have currency dropping into stacks like this. It's like, I mean, you'll go. At least I found for myself. I went from having like no wisdom scrolls to like 5,000 guaranteed because they're tracking in.
Multiple stacks.
It's really refreshing, and that just goes to a whole other mindset of like how quality of life in Path is just abysmal, and we're beating dogs. But aside from that, I did for Scourge myself. I was hesitant about like parts of Scourge, and I enjoyed the parts that I did initially before I started doing a tower stuff, and then I ended up getting the Crested Desire, the auto bomber helmet. So I was like, oh fuck, now I want to actually play Scourge, and I want to build this build. So I was like, all right, I'll go do tower. That will get impulses, and I'll get Stormseeker and all that stuff. So then I started tower farming and did the whole thing. And I just stuck with tier 3 towers because all I cared about was just like base uniques. And I think I hit pretty much every single tier 1 or 2 unique in the game, and then everything down for the most part, except the 2 I was looking for. So I never found an Impulses or a Stormseeker, but I found like multiple Arakali's Fang, Shavs, Callum's Heart, everything under the sun, Martyr of Innocence, all the like really rare, like for some reason rare uniques. It's really fun doing that, and I did it as a Wander. I'm not sure. Did you do it as a bow or a Wander, Manny?
I played a Wander as well, actually.
Yeah. I think the Wander's better. I like the Wander more. I guess the obvious contention is like Wind Ripper, but in reality, it's not even that much of a difference because the little stupid book shield gives you 8 quant, and it's like uptime of that 8 versus partial uptime of 15
I honestly
or something.
don't think it matters too much.
No, it's like a negligible difference because you're being carried by Scourge's innate quantity anyway. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun doing that, and I had a lot of fun doing that. But it leads me to like kind of my next point about Scourge, which was the actual scourging of items. I felt was like I barely ever did, and every time I did do it, it was like a massive disappointment. And then at times I would do it in huge swaths of like 50 of 60 of the same unique, and nothing would be even remotely salvageable. And I think that comes to my key problem with Scourge is the one-way street aspect of the corruption part of it, which was there's basically, from my perspective, and this is maybe because I like to make things as close to perfect as possible. I always felt there was no point to Scourge an item unless it was already had a good corrupted implicit, because you could always Scourge it afterwards, but you couldn't corrupt it after you Scourged it. So that led to me having, like, say I was trying to Scourge a unique glove. Well, that means I have to first get the implicit I want, and then I could Scourge it. Otherwise, it's a waste not having that implicit on it. And the odds of hitting the implicit may be 1 in 50, but the odds of it being ruined with Scourge was like guaranteed. Yeah. So every time I would do that, I'd be like, oh, I finally got Eloica in my Sedemas, let me Scourge it, and now I've got like minus 20 attack speed. It's like, why did I do this? Which always kind of felt like that part of the mechanic. The mapping, the Scourge maps were fun, but even in the lens of Tower, Scourge maps for me always massively underperformed compared to just running a tower, unless that Scourge map had like a very specific modifier, like it gained twice as much Scourge stacks or dropped like Scarabs or Expedition stuff. So 9 out of 10 Scourge maps were just kind of like left in the stash because it was worse than a regular rare tier 3 tower. Yeah. What was your guys' experience with like that sort of stuff, or the actual scourging of items in general?
I feel like it's a mechanic that only becomes relevant way too late into the game. Yeah. Like on your first playthrough up to, say, Sirius level 90 or whatever goal you want to have, there's almost no point doing it at all other than the 6-link mechanics. You know, the chance to get an additional link. Yeah. Maybe you can get your 5 or 6 link because of that. But by the time you actually have like, what do you want to Scourge? You want to Scourge like extra items that you have, right? Additional or duplicate uniques, basically. And by the time you have enough duplicate uniques or a backup rares that are equally good as your normal rares, you're so deep into endgame that like it takes a long time to even get to the point. Yeah. And There's another good use actually that you didn't mention is the pre-scourging for mythic orbs. That's actually what I've been doing for the most
Same,
part.
yeah.
So there's this mythic orb that lets you sometimes convert a corrupted item into a unique version of it. So you could mess, scourge. In my case, I did Azomite daggers, the cold iron point base, until it hit something good, which was, dozens, maybe hundreds of attempts in. So I always had something in there.
Yeah.
Just kept scourging white Azomite daggers until it gives me a
plus one gems or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
To that point,
then,
though. Yeah. It only really works in that scenario with the base you're using, because if I was trying to Mythic Orb Impulsas, there's no reason you'd want to Scourge the base unless you already had +2 gems, because otherwise you're losing massive value. So that only works with very niche things that basically don't already have good corrupted implicits. That would be worth going for.
Daggers or wands, like Obliteration or Cold Iron Point were good options, but yeah, it's a pretty niche one, but.
And Mythic Orbs are cool.
Made the mechanic fun to me.
I like
the only time I interacted with it a lot.
I think I've only found 10 or 15 in the entire league though, and only one of them hit unique. So
I didn't even realize you could use them like that. I thought Mythic Orbs were specifically designed to delete occultist vestments. So that's the only thing I've seen them do. But
pretty much,
from my perspective, I reached the point really quickly where I wasn't even trying to scourge something useful for what I was currently doing. I was just tossing uniques for potential ideas in there and being like, well, if we hit something great, maybe we can build a build with that in the future. And even then, even tossing in hundreds if not thousands of uniques. I mean, I got a couple of the most memorable thing I can even think of from this league that got scourged was I got a pair of wasps nests that have faster poison damage on them. That literally is the best thing I've scourged the entire league. It's just
the weighting was just that's one of the things where I mentioned earlier, I was I don't know how this made it past development, where it's how did what was that? What did Chris say? It was something along the lines of this is going to feel better than leveling uniques or something. And I was like, what are you even talking about? I mean, you could get the early heralds and that saves you. That's cool for 3 levels until you actually get them. But it's just so, the perspective is so out of depth of thinking that's better than having on a Gold Rim or Wanderlust or Life Sprig. It's just crazy.
I mean, there's also this aspect. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Sorry, I forgot you're going first.
Well, you can talk whatever you want. It doesn't fucking matter.
Fixed order. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's this topic of items that drop Scourged as well. I totally forgot about that being a thing until a week ago.
Oh, they're just hidden in my filter, I think.
I've been hiding them on filters instead too. Exactly. And every streamer I've watched was hiding them on their filter. I didn't know. I kind of forgot that they actually dropped, but they shower you in these rare items, even blue items that have random Scourge mods on them, and that just completely hit the mark. That's
well, it's one of those things where it's they're like, oh well, you should check them because they could be good, but by that same logic, why aren't we IDing every single rare that drops? There's a point of sanity that has to be drawn where you're not popping every barrel for a mirror. You can't have that level of fear of missing out, or you're never going to go anywhere in path. So
the thing is that Scourge makes the item worse on average by a lot. It's not even close, right?
Yeah, it's 99 to 1. It's so bad.
It's worse than looking at a normal rare, really, on average. It's completely pointless.
I was going to try, I went on PoEDB and pulled every single Scourge modifier with its weighting and all that into a spreadsheet. My intention was to turn it into a pivot table that people could use to try to estimate, what's the most effective way to upgrade
depressing
my next piece.
grid.
It was literally so depressing I stopped.
Yeah.
I stopped halfway through because
it's worse than synthesis modifiers, which was the thing that broke me when I looked at them on stream, which was oh, what are the odds of getting a power charge ring or a percent int belt or something? I mean, looked at what are the odds of hitting a good Scourge modifier in a chest, and it was basically worse. And I was like, this is just fucking crazy. Because the values, that's the biggest upsetting part, was the value of a Scourge modifier was not on almost every piece was not remotely close to the value of a synthesis modifier or a corrupted implicit. It wasn't even remotely close. There were things you can get +1 gem chest and that for whatever active skill and then minus 10 res. But you could just get +2. Why would you? What is happening? And I guess the only thing that would make the most sense with the rare Scourge drops is if the currency was was so high value at crafting corrupted items that it could be useful, but then you wouldn't even use it on Scourge gems, you just use it on regular corrupted items that probably are better. So I think the major flaw was that Scourge like shared a tag with Corrupted for the crafting materials. Because if it was a separate thing, you could make the value of the scourging currency like super high, and then it'd be really fun. Like, you know, if you had like the Scourge Chaos Orb, like made it so they're all tier 1s and tier 2s or something. Like, oh cool, we can make something wild if it has the right scourging, but it might be like, you know, or it could delete the item. Like, I just thought they totally missed the mark with risk reward. It was like just so risk and no reward.
Yeah. So on the topic of Scourge maps, because you mentioned them, I pretty much agree with your point that you mentioned earlier that they feel way worse than normal maps. Like, I really enjoyed the Scourge mechanic, just scourging in Tower or whatever other map, just clicking it whenever I wanted to. But the Scourge maps, they have these innate modifiers of only shifting randomly, only shifting.
Yeah, those are brutal.
God.
Or the negative movement speed ones, or the regen ones, basically made it if you were to, at least in like, if you were doing tier 16s, which I didn't do a lot of, but when I did do tier 16s, setting up my Atlas success and getting my favorites, if you did a Scourge map that had like the 20% regen per second, and you hit a boss, it's pretty much, that's just loss, because, and that could go up to 40, 60, 80, I think it was even like the highest, and it's just a total wash, kind of. I really liked the boss thing, though, and it's not even like it was a big part of the league, but I really liked the kind of, just the bosses showing on the map. I thought the actual design was really cool, and to the point of the design, you could quote me on this one, I'm 99% sure these are just going to be Path 3, or Path 2, Path 3, please no, Path of Exile 2 assets that they're just, like, we're just going to see, like, an Act 3 is, like, this looks like Scourge or something, because the models are so cool looking, the actual enemies, that for sure they're just, like, going to be ripped into the new game. Yeah, I like the boss in that. They were cool looking. It was a cool 3 bosses. They had mechanics. They had something with the timer stopping that was kind of jank, but it was kind of fun.
Me of the Delirium League in terms of the bossing,
oh, for sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Every now and then you get one. You're always happy to see it. It drops a lot
of
stuff.
It was a little bit better because the timer stopped even somewhat, which makes it infinitely better than finding Kosis or Omniphobia in a delirious like map, or not map, like hitting a mirror, because nothing feels worse than like, oh shit, Kosis, and then like the fog goes away and you're like, fuck me. Like
you spend like a minute getting to 10% life, and then it's just goodbye.
Yeah. So this feels a lot better than that, which was the mechanic was the timer. It paused it for 5 seconds every 5% of the life you dealt or something, but it didn't add up, which was annoying. Like if you did 20% of its life in one shot, it only still added 5 or 10 seconds. It didn't add like 20 seconds. But even that was cool. It was just like a cool thing. What else is there? Any last thoughts about Scourge in general, I guess? You guys want to talk about?
I think it's interesting. I don't even know that this is I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, but this is 2 leagues in a row where if you look at the Scourge map modifiers, they've essentially introduced things that have made content basically like you could randomly just be unable to do
nullified things
based on your like between immunities and expedition, and then like the, you know, for me as a CI build, lose 300 life per second or even lose life on entering, like it just completely shuts off builds like totally. And so I have a whole tab of like, well, I played CI for the first few weeks, so I had a whole tab of like Scourge maps that I just literally can't run, and it just feels weird.
Yeah, to clarify what Shaq's referring to, in Expedition, there was a modifier, a yellow tagged modifier that said X amount of damage, you just total immunity to that type. So if you were playing a pure Fizz build, and then mobs could just have, they're immune to Fizz damage, which is, again, it just begs the question, why not just make this 90% even? So like you could at least do something. It doesn't totally brick the experience. And to the point of what he's saying, why can't it just be, you know, life, but like, or a percentage of your life? That way it doesn't kill CI builds, because if it's a flat amount, then you take 1 damage, 1 life, you're just dead. So that's just again strange design. I always try to play devil's advocate, like what were they thinking when they? But then I think of this, I'm like, there's no other side kind of to these things where it's like.
I don't mind it for Expedition because it's completely optional to hit remnants.
Yeah.
It's supposed, you know, they're completely risk versus reward things. You just skip them if you can't run them. Expedition or Scourge, however, you know, you can't know what you're gonna Scourge on your map, and it's not like these mod. You don't need a high tier mod to destroy the map for you. If you just hit the very first one, it's already a brick for some of them. So yeah, that's, I guess,
to play your devil's advocate, that optional engagement with the content could extend so far into the ethos where you're like, well, then don't Scourge maps. Well, then don't play Path. Well, then like it just kind of can go forever. And I guess if not to say like every time that question gets brought up, maybe just by asking it, we that should be the red flag that, oh, this just isn't fun and we shouldn't be adding it into the game. But I kind of think it's to that point.
With like new mods, map mods, right? They can't just have the same 10 map mods we have on maps. They're trying out new things. In Expedition, they tried the immunities.
Yep.
And the very extreme bricking of mods.
Yep.
Like mods that brick your build completely, but are very optional. This time, not so optional.
Yeah.
And a lot of them required tanky and good sustain builds to live through, like the take physical damage on shift, degen 1,000 life per second, those kind of things.
Yep.
Encourage players to build way tankier than usual.
Yeah. I think 28,000 lightning damage taken upon entering is a bit rough.
Yeah. So the two things that I think it did encourage a lot was like for people that don't necessarily have as much play time that typically would be like one build a league people, those mods did. Like, I'm a great example. I typically would play Cold Out for a while to build up my SSF resources, and I saw that on one of my first Scourge maps, and I was like, whoa, I'm going to have to get in all, like, much earlier than I normally would, which was exciting because I was like, I got to consider, other builds to build up and play, and it, like Manny was saying, that encouraging people to start thinking about defenses more was, I think, overall a huge positive of how difficult Scourge was, whether or not you're a fan of it.
Yep.
I've seen so many people, like streamers, for instance, that typically are, like, absolute full-on 100% DPS mode, zero survivability, playing like tanky builds for the first time. That was pretty cool.
I feel like I've seen most of the people just not engage with Scourge, which is the other side of it. To that point, though, like to further what you're saying, I guess there was not the same thing. I wouldn't re-roll or make a new build to conquer that type of currency or that type of content, but I would do things like put on Purity of Lightning for that map, or run a Topaz upon taking a Savage hit or whatever. Like, it did, I guess, in a way. Why did my phone ring? Please, game. It did like imbue a sense of alternate thinking when it came to try to conquer the content. I don't know if that's just us adapting to shit design, or this is their idea of slowing down the game.
It reminded me of the other Expedition Remnant modifier where it said like enemies, if you're below a certain percentage of life, I think it was 20% life, enemies kill you instantly. So for low life builds, my low life version, that forced like a full adaptation. I had to swap out like Zealotry out of a Prism Guardian, put in like a 35% aura. The whole thing was getting to like 21%.
For sure.
Life remaining. It was fun.
Yeah, and then the tinfoil in me always asks the question: did they think of that? Is that what they thought of? Like, oh, I want to get players to do that, or it's just like, oh fuck, we forgot that low life exists. I'm not sure which one's real. I'll give them the benefit. Again, we'll see when Path 2 comes out.
Yep.
Any last thoughts about Scourge?
Well, I don't know if this is going to be a point for later, but do you guys think it's going to be part of the core game in any form? Is it going to come back? Or is this like a one-league experiment?
I think that people really, really liked Tainted Fusing. And I think that's a big part that I think we could probably see Scourge maps drop, kind of what I expect. And that's what I expect for even Ultimatum or something. We might see something like that when that gets implemented. Just like kind of a Synthesis-esque implementation, which is like the highlight part of the league tossed in, and then maybe it drops some of its currency that people liked the most. Like you might have a Scourge map where you go through Scourge and race stacks and then fight a boss, and then it drops some currency. Like I could see something like that.
I could also see, similar to like the Sacrifice Fragments, corrupted maps. The bosses have a chance to drop Scourge maps.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I've seen people suggested to combine it with either Val Zones or Aziri, where they could rework Aziri areas to be, Scourge always, maybe not with Scourge, where they can drop the currency at least, or similar. Spawn those monsters there.
It's a good segue because this comes to the question of like whether you're implementing a league or removing a league or just crunching leagues together. Like the game Path of Exile is, most people would say, I think, is quite bloated for like a casual player experience. There's just a fuck ton of things in Path, and a lot of it's kind of collides with other mechanics or convolutes other ones, and we are upcoming having one of them leave the game, which is Prophecy. So Prophecy is leaving the game. Some Fated Uniques are being implemented in the game. Not all of them, just some of them are being implemented in their current forms, meaning they're taking the Fated version and making the normal version the exact stats of the Fated version. So we're technically losing half the uniques.
Yeah.
And then even more so because some uniques are just not being added. Like Asenath's helmet is just gone. The career ward upgrade is just gone. Unsure why, but is this like? What are your thoughts on Prophecy leaving? How they implemented it? What's up with that?
Good riddance.
Good riddance.
I mean, I think the Prophecy menu and the going to certain X zones or whatever.
The busy work, yeah.
Yeah, the small questing, the side, it's just completely outdated. It was already dated when it got implemented to the game. Honestly, it got tired, like it got boring after a league or two, and we have it for like what 5 years now. It's about time it goes.
Yeah,
and it's not exactly the highest quality content. I don't think new players will miss this. They're not missing out on much. Like I'm not sad to see it leave. The extra like content and loot that he gave, the uniques and the fun prophecies to play around with, like Monster's Treasure or even like Twice Enchanted, that kind of stuff. Hopefully we're getting back in some different sort, and that's what they already announced, right? So if we get those highlights of the league in a different form, then I'm totally down to remove it.
Then some of the faded uniques were added, like Reflection is going to be behind Uber at Zeri, which makes awesome thematic sense in every which way. Hopefully we'll see similar uniques being added to other bosses. That'd be nice to see. Check.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like you said, it's a ton of busy work. It doesn't really, I can't think of almost any prophecies that you're like, feels fun. There's some that you're glad to hit, but there's almost no time when I'm going to go, hey, here's silver coins, give me something, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's fun. It's just, they're hard to track too. Like when a prophecy procs, if it's not one that is like, this zone will contain this thing, you'll get prophecies that'll proc, and you look and nothing shows up in your loot filter. Nothing. You're like, what? She'll just all of a sudden Navali's just screaming at you, and it's just not fun anymore.
Yeah, it was a very strange league. It is very archaic for like the time. This definitely is anti-path. If the idea of path is like I'm mapping and I'm killing things and I'm just flowing through that system. Granted, there's a lot of things that hinder that system, but this was a total detraction as the league goes. Also,
prophecy as like a word and something that evokes a lot of like thematic elements. It's such a strong concept that removing it maybe gives them a chance to do something really good with the actual prophecy theme later.
I could definitely see them I mean, Navali just from like a game dev standpoint, you tend not to design models, pay voice actors to do a character, and then just scrap the project. So I can definitely see Navali herself coming back in a way. Even Parandus I mean, you could see like, I don't know, whatever, like some sort of Forsaken Masters-esque 2 type thing. Electric Boogaloo, yeah, that could definitely happen. I mean, you have so many people that fall into this category, like Venerius, whatever his name was from Synthesis, Navali, Parandus. Even I mean, at this point, it's Rigwald's on the way in. I would say probably for Talisman's probably on the chopping block forever. But yeah, I could definitely see like that being a thing, like Forsaken Masters 2 in whatever sense of the way, or it could just be NPCs in Path 2 for fuck's sake. Who knows? But the one thing I just don't get is I don't get why they've removed the certain uniques. To me that's strange, especially Asenath's, because that was actually used like by people use that helmet. It was just a weird one to take out, unless they're re-adding it in a different unique.
What are they doing about Asenath's exactly?
It's gone.
Are they removing the upgraded version or the base version? Or both?
Upgraded version. Oh, gone. The one that triggered the abilities. The one that was used.
So the useful one is gone, and we keep the one that is like a level 10 leveling unique and outdated at level 20.
Yep.
Yeah, that's odd.
It's just so weird after they did so many changes in the last couple leagues, like adding uniques to the core drop pool, to just delete so many. It's like,
there's also a div card for it. There's a div card for that prophecy, which is strange. Right. Yeah, I don't know. I assume we'll see it. I guess.
Div cards that grant itemized prophecies will be redesigned.
I mean, they might add us a new league unique. You know how they rework Legion uniques at some point, and some base uniques suddenly became Legion uniques. Yep. Maybe Asenat's chant will be the next league's unique, or maybe a rework league unique.
For sure.
We'll see what they do.
Yeah.
But looks like it's going to be gone for next league, right?
Yeah.
It might come back later, though.
Looking forward to Ultimatum coming back, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe it's going to be an Ultimatum unique, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another NPC. With how good the league trailers always are on the league reveal.
Yeah.
You know, at some point, like toward the end of a 2-minute trailer, you're gonna have like the voices of Kadiro and the ultimate and the Taskmaster and Navali just pop out of nowhere with no context, and people are gonna lose their minds.
Oh yeah, it's definitely like a big fucking clippable moment whenever that.
Yeah.
We're definitely you heard it here first. Forsaken Masters 2. all the gangs all here. So
Godforsaken.
yeah. Oh no. So Prophecy is the one that's leaving now. What do you think is the next league to be cut or incorporated into something else?
Please, Torment.
You go ahead. I couldn't think of one.
Yeah, the Tormented Spirits are like it's kind of like, it feels like Abyss in the way that sometimes they're backtracking. You kill them instantly in the late game, so they have absolutely no relevance. It's not like you're playing them in the late game where you're trying to maneuver them and force them through mobs to juice them up. And then the worst downside ever is just you essentially get the old school instant like detonate dead move where you just hit the wrong Tormented Spirit and you die instantly. It's horrendous.
We were saying recently what this worst sounding Path of Exile is, and I said it's when you leap slam into a pack or something. It's a martyr pack because you're just gone. I don't care what build you're playing. Like it's just you're just gone. Like it is the most lethal thing in the game. Is hitting whatever the scaling is with martyrs. There's something fucky there that it's also a sound you don't hear outside of that thing really. It's like the only place for that sound is a martyr ghost. I think the easy implementation for that is they could just add a map mod or something that just says some things are possessed in the map, or unique mobs are possessed, magic mobs are possessed. That's like just a level of difficulty and a level of quantity that they add, which I don't think anyone really minds just in a generic sense. It's just the actual ghosts themselves are fucking
They already have
pointless.
precedent with that with Temple mod, right?
Yeah,
the tier 3 Tormented Spirit Room.
They could easily just have things be possessed. I mean, how fun would it be if there's like, not that fun is maybe not for hardcore, but if you entered a zone and every rare has 5 ghosts in them, like that'd be kind of interesting. There's like things you could easily do like that. That would be a great way to implement it. So I can't wait to see them not do that.
Torment is the obvious choice if we're talking about a mechanic to remove, but I'd argue that it has so little impact that why even remove it? Like it has no depth or anything, right? It's not like a new player is overwhelmed with ghosts. They just
sure, but you can say the same about Prophecy. You can just not do it, and that doesn't impact you at all.
Yeah, Prophecy is kind of deep though, But
I mean,
ghosts they just happen. They're just like another mob type. They're just like rare monsters or strong boxes or something. I feel like they're so basic that there's not really any harm in having them. I mean, obviously the martyr should have been nerfed or removed years ago, but in general, I don't really see the ghost as like bloat or a problem in any way. They're just there. They're not really helping, but they're also not really hurting.
They just exist. You just forget you see them until you see them.
They are a little bit like domination and stuff in the same way too, where it's like just a thing that is not there's no depth to it. It just exists and it's there, and it's like okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like an actual mechanic that has bloat that should be removed. That's a hard one to come up with. Like
you could say like heist or even something. You could just say a big one.
They're way too new and too much like artwork and voice lines for them to be removed. I'd say. Like
that's the hard argument. Is like what's the development investment into the mechanic?
Exactly.
You could easily argue Harvest because there's only one voice line in that entire place, and that's why fight progress over and over again. But I guess that would mean you'd have to find Oshabi first.
That's true.
The most unobtainable boss in the game. Rare as fuck. So speaking of endgame bossing, Uber content, there are 4 different chunks of Uber content that were added last patch. The Simulacrum just going from wave 1 to 20 to 1 to 30. Which is kind of a soft Uber content because there's no actual new stuff really behind it. And then there's Blight Ravaged, which is Blight maps on super steroids. These only drop from Blight maps that are 14 to 16. And they are it's really just the same thing, the exact same loot as a regular Blight, but the bosses have 50 times the life. That's really all it is. I've done a bunch of those recently, and that gives you Strangle Grasp, the cool looking necklace thing. And then there's the Timeless Conflict, Flawless Ones, the Legion, which is just 5 ways on steroids. That gives you actual great quantity loot, but with stacking difficulty modifiers per reset, and then it has Stasis Prison. Probably, I would say now, no more Replicant Beta, but I'm not going to count that. But like, I think Stasis Prison is the rarest item in the game. I think now, but we could talk about that in a second. And then there's also Flawless Breachstones, which drop from the invitations to fight Breach Lords, and also the Feared. It can drop from both. But yeah, and that just gives you a cool amulet that basically makes your chest a 7-link. That's the gist of it. Have you guys engaged with any or some amount of these Uber contents? And if so, what are your thoughts? I guess we'll just start with Simulacrum, because that's the first one I wrote down.
Yep, I've been farming all of them. It's been basically my league goal to farm as many of them as possible and try to get those unique. So obviously I've done a lot of it. The Simulacrum I've probably done the least, because it doesn't drop anything, like no new unique, so I wasn't super excited for it. But I've done it a fair amount of times, like 10 runs or something.
Yep.
I really like the addition. The one thing that I dislike is that now it kind of feels like if you can't reach wave 30,
why do it at all?
You don't want to run it.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to have a character that is strong enough for wave 30. It's really difficult.
I found that I could very easily get to like 27, 28, and then it's like every step up is a drastic increase in their tankiness is the biggest thing that I've experienced.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to get over it and have a different mindset where, you know, it's first week of the league. Maybe I can only do wave 15 or 20. It's fine. Just run it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I'll find a new one. And then if you get over that, then there's pretty much no downside to this expansion of Simulacrum. I like it a lot.
It only feels bad if you're at like wave 25 and you haven't gotten the unique jewel drop yet. You're like, well, now it's like I'm living on wave to wave praying for a drop, because I feel like if I run it and I didn't get that, then like the one wave I couldn't do was the one that had the one passive voices, which is a bad mindset. I agree. But what are your thoughts, Shaq, on Simulacrum?
Yeah, Simulacrum's the one to me that's like as the person again who plays less and a lot of my stuff is more geared toward new players. That's like a huge hit for me. That's a huge positive. I like the fact that it's built into what's already the core content.
Yes,
like,
very, very much that.
I like and I totally agree that there is a little bit of like you get some people who have the fear of missing out in the sense that they would just rather sell if they don't think they can do wave 30. They're like, well, let me just sell it and get guaranteed, trade league currency. But for me, having access to it in the same amount that you had access to Simulacrums is a huge positive. So big fan of that one.
My biggest gripe is that it's capped at 30, and I don't know why. Because if it's just scaling difficult to the point where it's going to be impossible by just natural selection of the scaling, why not just have it go to 100? Like, there's
always some build that cheats their way through. This league we have this Bone Shatter.
Sure, but build. that burden is onto the developer to fix clearly not intended game mechanic interactions, though. That's not a fault of Simulacrum being to 100. That's a fault of them not realizing that Mantra Flames is counting the wrong things for stacks. You know, like if the game wasn't like I would say bugged or this wasn't a issue, if and all things were considered, how far could a build even go based off the scaling curve?
Yeah, maybe
40. Like because at the point like white mobs are hitting 30k on you. Like I just don't see that. I think it'd be a fun like versus now where it's like okay now. A lot of builds can clear 20, 30 is not much of an issue. It'd be fun to see who can get the highest if there was just no cap effectively. And the gear and the loot is like whatever. Like Simulacrum loot is just not amazing, so it wouldn't even matter.
The Delve ladder,
yeah, it'd be a cool. It just seems like a missed opportunity. Yeah. But I think that's what drives a lot of fun things is like because then you have it like okay, so now we see month 2 of a new league. We got Joe Schmo has their little 1 week event where it's like, how far can you get in Simulacrum? Like it's, there's that sort of things. Like it just breeds opportunity for fun events, I think. So I just feel like
an endless Simulacrum event to me.
That'd be kind of fun. Yeah. Starts at level I1 and then just goes up from there.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. That's actually a really cool idea for an event is if you just had it go from I level 1 to I level 200 and just as far as you can, which is basically what you're describing is just endless ledge. Which is the exact same function. It's just inside Simulacrum. There's no reason they can't do it. What the fuck, GGG? had this in. This is a real hard tangent, but I had an idea yesterday on stream. I don't know if you were here for the Shag, but we had it. I thought I was just like at the end of stream. I kind of get a little delirious at times, and then we just start rambling. And one of my ideas was, what if they had a league where the entirety of the league, every instance of the number 2 and number 9 were swapped?
No, I didn't see that.
So
one.
we ended up talking for a half hour about what this would even mean. And there is some levels of chaos that ensue, which is like the second you get to level 2. It says Act 9, so the mobs would be swapped and the experience levels are swapped. But if you get to level 2, you go right to level 9. And the next time you go to 12, you go to 19, 22 to 29.
Act 9 when you get to Act 2 and it's Act 9?
Oh, it's all chaos. You have to use waypoints. You have to have your friend TP you. It's fine. But like level 20 gems, level 90 gems, things that have mana costs become like massive. More multipliers on gems have 900%. Like it was just funny to like a thought experiment, and it just goes about as positive or a negative as possible. It turns out you only have to get 7 levels to get to 99 also, because the way it jumps. But yeah, it was very funny. So I like the idea of them doing more leagues like this. And we'll talk about later on. We'll talk about the 1 month, week long events. But yeah, what was your? So did you talk about Simulacrum, right? So what would we say? Has anyone done any of the Blight Ravage maps, the Uber Blight content?
I did like the Simulacrums a lot. Like the Simulacrum, I think is a huge success, a good rework. Like it adds.
Yep.
And it adds like a new way of farming the endgame. Really, like it's more like a trade league thing, I suppose. But I mean, you can just make characters around it and farm it non-stop. Never do anything else. It's profitable. It's high-level content. It's pretty fun. The Ravage maps, however, not so much of a success, I'd say. Like those are.
They suck balls. I hate them so much.
Blighted maps, yeah, as you said, blighted maps are like 5 times so light. They're just like a challenge, I guess. Like, there are more challenging blighted map, but they don't really feel like more rewarding and more fun.
It's very layout dependent also, because you could just get fucked. Like I've built some quite strong builds in standard solo self-found, and if you don't, you can get it so a layout will just not really have towers near the pump, and then you just get a couple bosses to spawn, and they have unexaggeratingly billions of life. Like they are so tanky that it gets really crazy, and all it takes is just like one. If the wrong one jumps to the pump, you just lose. That's it, and it just feels like such a massive loss of resources. Mostly because, and this, I don't know why this reminds me of Harvest, the way that the trail of things is like, I gather a seed to get the right color. I plant the seed. I hope it spawns the right plant, and then that plant has to spawn the right thing, and that thing has to roll the right rolls. It's like I have to run a map. I have to get a blight. The blight has to drop a map. The map has to be 14 to 16. I have to run the 14 to 16, and I have to get enough oil pods that drops a blight ravage, and then I get to run a blight ravage map. Like it's so deep in the chain for it to just be lost to like something that's partially out of your control. That feels terrible to me.
I mean,
and that's the reason I can't give personal feedback on the thing, because I've run a bunch of T14 to T16 blights, and I never had a single one drop. So I literally can't give feedback on it because in SSF never got one all league.
They drop around like every 5-ish, I think, on average.
I had a streak of like 20 where I didn't get one, so it could be rough.
Freaky.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends if you're running oils that increase the quantity or the number of loot you will get in some way, then it's going to be more likely. If you run the teal oils to speedrun them, and your drop rate goes down, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I think the mark of like, I don't say a bad content buzz. The second I get that unique amulet, I'm never touching a Blight Ravage map again. That is without question. And to me, that is like the biggest stamp of not worth doing,
Yeah. I've seen people farm them with success. Like, you would have to run like the big upside of it, right? The only way you get more loot than a normal blighted map, because by default it drops the same stuff.
Yeah.
But you can apply more oils to it, right? So if your build or your tower strategy is good enough that you don't have to use the oils that make the monsters slower and so on, and you can go anoint with like 7, 8, or even 9 reward oils, then they're actually becoming pretty good.
I'm currently running 6 to 7 reward oils, and then 2 of the ones that make it so the towers are cheaper. Exactly. And even then, the difference to me is borderline negligible, like of the amount of loot.
Think so?
Yeah, because I think most of the oils that affect, it's just most of the drops don't fucking matter. Like of the ones that are being like, you can get the things where there's a chance to double them, so I'll get, instead of 2 chaos, I'll get 1 chaos.
Yeah.
But like,
I mean, I see your point.
It's just effort versus value. Like I just don't think it's worth. I'd rather run 2 tier 16 blight maps than 1 blight ravage map, because I'm gonna get more. Like that's to me is the crux of it. Like it should be the difficulty of the content is way more than 2 times. Like the leap, if you've never done them, to try to describe it, like the leap from like a 14 map to a 15 map to a 16 map is not that big. Even to a leap from a tier 10 Scourge Blight map to a tier 16 is not that big. But from a 16 to a Blight Ravaged is like a world of difference in the enemy's life and damage. Like it is massive. But the loot is not a world of difference. That's where they lost me. I don't mind anything ever being insanely difficult if it's insanely rewarding.
I mean, if the amulet drops 1 in 100 times and it's over 100x, then you get 1x per run on average, right?
Yeah. However, that is not how Wrath works. And if you run 99 dry and you've effectively just wasted 99 runs,
just saying on average.
Yeah, but that's the problem. I mean, you could that flows in that river flows many directions. When it comes to statistics
I'm
and
not positive
paths.
about them actually. What I like about the Ravage maps is that it makes it interactive the towers more.
Yeah.
Because normal blighted maps, when your character is like decently strong, like endgame strong, you kind of just don't rebuild many towers, right? You just kind of roll over it.
Yep.
But the Ravage map really encourages you to build towers in a smart
way.
way.
Well, you have to build those fucking the stone skin towers is like one of the most mandatory things because it just perma freezes bosses. And if that doesn't happen, you're just done. Like
after years of Blight being in the game, I actually learned about good ring annoyances this league.
Yeah.
And I learned about like good tower strategies because for the most part I just spam minion tower or something and that's good enough.
But to that point though, the damaging towers just like tickle the bosses. Like they don't really do a whole lot of damage to the bosses. So it's kind of like it's almost not the same problem, which is like, you don't need towers at all. It definitely is better. Like you're definitely using the towers more in a Blight Ravage versus any other type of Blight map, but you're still not using 80% of the towers because they just don't do any damage.
There's like this one strategy about freeze and stun locking monsters that you just go for it because it's the cheesy OP strategy for
that's what I do. I have like the freeze towers, I have the circle frost towers, I have the slow towers, and you have the stone skin towers, and that just makes it so bosses stop moving for a little bit, get slowed, and then they get perma stopped. And then as long as you can kill the trash, then the stone skin towers only target the bosses, and then they never move again. And then you could just take 10 minutes to clear a Blight Ravage map, and that's fine because you've already succeeded. But it's just getting to that terminal velocity is what can be a little bit annoying, and it just feels like it's. It just doesn't feel like I'm fighting like waves of spore monsters. It feels like I'm just like locking someone to the ground, and then that's just the end of the mechanic. I feel like it's just kind of a missed opportunity because I was so expecting like Blight Ravage maps to contain a Blight boss, since they talked about the heart of the Blight and all that stuff, and it's just I got semi hard for nothing. It was just.
Is Blight also one of the things where they said there were lines included for a boss that never?
Correct.
Exactly,
yeah.
Which was when I first heard about Blight Ravage, I was like, "Oh, Blight boss, it's happening, Blight boss," and then nothing. Yeah, and every single Blight mob is just
accessibility though. Like it's not as good as Simulacrum, where the new Uber content is built into the actual Simulacrum. That's awesome, right? Yeah. But Ravage maps, they drop.
It's definitely the second most common as far as accessibility. Yeah. Like Simulacrum's the most common.
Trick you can do where you fracture fossil or split beast the Ravage map to get 2 of them.
You can fracture fossil them, also.
So you average something like 1 Ravage map every 3 blighted maps in that case.
If you have all the back end resources,
yeah, if you got everything around. And farming up blighted maps is also very, very strong because of the Atlas passives being insanely good for it.
Right.
The pre-content is nice to get there, which I think is not so much the case for something like the flawless breachstones. I feel like kind of the opposite, which is I had a really, really hard time even getting one of those because I got 1 in 12, and to run 12 invitations is like really it's just 12 Lunatals can take some time to get.
I mean, that could be an endgame grind right there. Run 20 hiddens. That would be endgame grind material.
It's really, really hard. Yeah, to get that amount is ridiculous. And then the one I ran, like I just couldn't do. I just instantly failed. So that was fun. But yeah, like it's just the accessibility to the content is a big thing for me. And Simulacrum is obviously it's built in, so it's automatically accessible. I think that is the best way that they've implemented it ever. And then you could even, I mean, I'm not sure if they could have done this in the same way, but like Blight Ravage maps obviously drop as an item, but there could have been a thing where it's just like 1 in 10 Blight maps after you clear them, she's in the middle and she's like, oh, I hear a rumbling, and then like then this is like you can 6 portals pop up. Like that'd be really cool also, and they could easily do that so it's built in a level of the content. But yeah, I feel like for the breach stones it was just like so inaccessible that I've literally only got a chance to run one.
Legion too.
Legion ones are also very, very rare. But at least the Legion ones you don't need 5 to run the thing. You could just toss in 1, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's at least, I guess, a little bit better. But then only that one boss has a chance of dropping whatever.
To get a flawless stone, you would have to find around 5 hidden, so 5 of each stone. Is a pretty similar thing for the Uber emblems though, because you got to run like 4 or 5 ways to get one. So you need similar amount of emblems as you would need breach stones, and that's the big issue right now, is that farming splinters and emblems feels really, really slow compared to the past. The Atlas passives have been heavily nerfed both for breach and Legion. That's why it feels
breach ones were extra brutal. Losing flash breach, losing all those rare mobs in flash breach was like super painful. It was I was saying when they first implemented the echoes changes, like the Atlas passives, I was like, I would have rather had the flash breach in the old one than all of the combined breach stuff. Like, which is just, that's sad. Any thoughts, Shaq, on the Legion or breach stuff?
The Legion and breach were so gated, clearly going to be gated behind so many layers of RNG that was the case where I had to literally, when I was making plans for what I wanted to get done this league, I had to mark both of those down as like as a part-time streamer,
as a write-off.
I seriously doubt. Yeah, literally, like it was one of those. If it happens, great. I literally don't think it's possible for me to do what I want to do, and then also pursue even doing those at all.
Well, to that point, like even as you part-time streaming, you're still, I would say, how much would you average your playtime per day?
Way more than almost anyone else.
So yeah, that was what I was kind of prompting there, which is like, if you can't access it and you have game knowledge and experience, then when I say the word casual player, has nothing to do with skill level. I'm just talking about time per day. If you have an hour, 2 hours a day, this shit is just gone for you. Like some of these things are just realistically gone.
You guys are like 0.1% in terms of your playtime. I'm still top 1% easily, and even then I was like, I literally can't do it. It's almost never going to happen. To be fair, obviously.
Yes.
In SSF, yes.
I mean, that's the way it's intended to be, right? It's aspirational content for us no-lifers to pursue something. It's not something everyone is supposed to get to. They don't need to, because it's really nothing special. It's not, not missing out on much.
But how many Blight Ravage maps have you run, Manni? Or have you?
Exactly 101.
Okay, 101. So that's probably
in a week. It was actually pretty fast to farm the Ravage maps.
Oh no, okay, yeah. So like, but even then, you're probably in. There's probably like 10 people that have. They're probably the top 10 in the world for the amount of Blight Ravage maps you probably have farmed. Like I could see that being the case
for sure.
Yeah. So
barely people farm these 24/7.
Yes. Yeah. And then how many flawless breach stones do you have?
I did 8 or 9, I think. But I got my amulet on the 7th run. I got really lucky, and then I didn't really do any more breach after that. But those are a lot slower to farm.
Yeah.
Like if you give me the same amount of time I had to farm 100 Ravage maps, a week of heavy grinding, I would not do 100 flawless stones. There's no way.
Yeah.
I'd maybe do 10 to 20. They're much slower to acquire.
What do you think is the next piece of content that might have Uber content in the same regard?
Uber heist?
Like a 10-wing grand heist. It's like I-86.
No, there's just 10 times more doors.
Oh boy, it's just doors, nothing but doors.
Animations to open the doors.
What's the word that means the opposite of aspirational? That's something no one wants to drop. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
To Manny's point, I kind of agree. Like when I was discussing the Uber content like very early on in the league with people, that was kind of my opinion. Was like with them, they stated very clearly what the goal was, which was aspirational content that most people won't get to, which I have a lot of respect for. They didn't try to paint it as like, this is just a little step up from the normal content that you should expect to get to. That being said, I don't even know if I don't even know if the word aspirational is even correct, because I don't think there was even a point at which that was an aspiration for me in SSF. Like it's right on that border where I don't necessarily
unobtainable
have a problem with it being
almost.
rare. Yeah, exactly. It was literally unobtainable content, but it's fine. I don't have a problem with it.
It's difficult though, right? If they make it super rewarding and aspirational, then people are gonna feel like they're missing out if they don't get there.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
So if they make something that is this hard and grindy to get to, it can't really be very rewarding, because otherwise people are gonna fear of missing out. It's awkward, right?
Yep.
Like, they can't really do it right. I think they did an okay job.
I think it comes to like a real, you know, 8 to 10 years ago when Path of Exile was first starting. There a lot of the levels of complication in Path of Exile were praised because it was like a new and genuine type of way to treat an ARPG, where it's the levels of mechanical complication in the game, and to play the game was like that was put on a pedestal. And I feel like over the past couple of years, a lot of the complication has kind of become convolution, and it's a lot less. Like the accessibility is no longer like a mark of pride, but more like a badge of confusion. Like when it comes to how they're designing things, to where it's like, you know, oh, we have the most inaccessible content, but and it's like you're saying it like it's a good thing, but I think it's now not so much a good thing because you've lost a lot of your players to not being able to do it. And that's my biggest fear with like this vein of Uber content. I have no problem with it being extremely difficult and hard to get to, but like with that comes a level of kind of like fuck you to everyone else who can't do it to a degree. And I feel like that's the more content that gets added to that degree, it feels really bad for people who can't touch it. And it's going to only feel worse when there's other, like, just from like a business standpoint, you have to consider the other competition in the genre. Yeah. They don't have the same thing to that degree with that same mentality. And it's like kind of puts a bad taste in some people's mouths, a lot of people's mouths, like when that happens.
I mean, I don't think adding inspirational content like this is what their goal was, or their big vision about the game or anything. This is mostly because they did these community podcasts last week, and especially in the softcore related ones, this topic came up over and over, that people, like the streamers that they talked to, they wanted aspirational content, and that word got thrown around like hundreds of times, so they just figured, well, let's give something like that. It's not something that they're going to focus on in the future. I think that's probably going to be a one-time thing.
Yeah.
And these are ones that I don't. Some of the other leagues to add aspirational content would be adding a lot more infrastructure than these, where it's just basically like Breachstones, for instance, scale the monsters up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Simulacrum, just keep it. Just basically, all these are just scaled up for the most.
Just adding zeros. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts on the Uber content as it stands?
I hope I find the status prison soon. I want to be free.
Yeah. Did you just find your Strangle Grasp?
No, I didn't.
Oh, well, you're not free from that.
I'm gonna go again.
It's okay. So we have Q&A. Let me find. I didn't even fucking pull up the questions. They're all gonna be stupid. I didn't even fucking bother posting a lot of that stuff, and I just have a couple, but they're gonna be stupid. I know my people. Bunch of big dum-dums. All right. Okay. Yeah, this is about as what I expected.
Perfect.
Give me 1 second.
Tamer than I expected, actually.
And please stream again. +1 for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So let me find. I always just look. There's a lot of bullshit in here. Let me just find the actual questions. Would you ever consider making a private league for a duration of an entire league? Well, that first part of the question, no. That is solo self-fund. Everyone competes to get the most rarest uniques, and winner gets something. We've done this for a charity event for a week-long league, but I would never make a private league lasting the duration of an entire league. If it does, that would mean Path of Exile has died, because it has to be such an offensively bad league that I would skip the entirety of it.
There's no point doing it. You can just play the normal league, right?
Yeah, I don't understand.
A race for uniques,
you would just do it in the league. There's adding the private aspect of it is just a middleman. I don't know why I do that. But that being said, would we do something like that? Yeah, sure. I mean, we've done it for charity before. We'll probably do it for charity again. We had stuff to give out and whatever. Yes. So yeah, I mean that again. Like Manny does it like every league or whatever the fuck it happens. Yeah, I'll give Manny a cookie, so he's the winner. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much pain does Legi feel for his loss of uniques? Well, I know 3 people who've done the exact same thing, to be fair. To clarify,
really?
yeah. I'm not sure if you know. There's one of them was also like on the unique ladder was like number 7, and he did also. While he was trying to transfer. They added a button. I'm not sure why they added it. I think it's just to fuck with people. In the beginning in Path of Exile, I can actually just show it, but I'm gonna have my mouse far away so I don't misclick it. A button. There we go. This one right here that says migrate to standard, and if you were to click it and have the league clicked, that has there's like when there's private leagues up and a bunch of things and events. This is a much more flooded page, and solo stuff on standard is like nestled between 3 different race leagues for some reason. It's not like an alphabetical always, and if you just misclick the wrong one, or if it's in that list and you don't see it, you just zooped your entire solo self on life into trade league, and he did that amongst other people. Does it feel good? I don't think so, but I'm sure there's a part of him and a part of anyone who's ever done this that's kind of like maybe it's a little refreshing, because it's like there's a weight off my shoulders and I get to start again, and that maybe is fun. So I'm sure it's to a degree. How do you guys deal with burnout? That's a valid question. Why don't we'll start with Manni on that one.
I mean, whenever I feel any burnout or no fun playing the game, then you just stop playing, right? You just wait until the new league or until you have fun again.
Mm-hmm.
What helps me stay interested in a league for a long time is long-term goals.
Yep.
Like this league, the goal for me was these aspirational uniques, and there's always something to keep me going. Then there's something to do when you log on. But if you don't have a long-term goal, you're gonna log onto the game and you feel like, wait, what am I gonna do now? I don't really know. Then that's a recipe for burnout right there. You're gonna quit the game.
Yeah, goals are big. Check.
Yeah. So goals is a big piece of it. That's I can't stress enough. That's like the number one thing I tell people is what are you trying to get done with something when they're like, oh, I'm about to burn out. I'm like, what have you been working on? And most people don't have an answer. Goals are huge. For me, there's also a big piece of it. It's like I have pretty severe ADHD, and this happens to be my hyperfixation game. So I tell people, like, for me, it's a real fun chemical imbalance. Like I literally cannot burn out on the game. I play it league start to league end, and it's my thing. So, but as a part of that, I just make goals naturally, because that's otherwise I just find myself kind of floating around and doing whatever, getting a bunch of characters to 90 and not really having anything done at the end of a league. So
yeah. Goals are definitely like to the point of goals. You set like a big goal, whether it's aspirational content or level 100 or whatever the fuck it is, and on the road to that goal, other bullshit will pop up. So if I had a goal of my goal is to get all uniques. So I was running Grand Heist, and in that Grand Heist, I got Crested Desire. So like, oh, now I want to build Auto Bomber. So now I'm trying to farm unique. So now I'm doing tower farming, and then now I'm doing, and it just kind of goes from there. So normally the path kind of reveals itself on the road to your larger goals. If you want to do it in a real, like, the technical breakdown is like, you have a 3-month goal, then a 1-month goal, then a 1-week goal, and even a 1-day goal. It's like, my goal today is to run 10 maps. Like, that's my goal. If that's your goal and you complete it, fine. Everything past that, that's just gravy, If your goal for the week is get level 90, everything you do past that, or everything that also happens, that's also cool. And you'll find yourself reveling in the completion of the goal, which can be very obtainable if you set it like that. And then everything else after or between is just more fun. So that's one way to do it for the goal thing. I also just play 4 games at the same time. So for me, that's very easy.
Yeah.
So even during stream, I have Raid on one window, I have RuneScape on another window. I'm just fucking quad tasking. And then I'm only about 20% of the smooth brain is even on path. So it's not even really much of an issue. Just whatever works.
Stardew Valley, baby.
Yeah, Stardew. You could play multiple games on. You could podcast. You could listen to podcasts while playing. You could listen to music. You could just distract yourself from the game, which feels a bit strange at times. But a lot of path is like busy work, so you could kind of numb yourself through the busy work and then focus on what you want to focus on. There's no there's no one fit all answer, but goals I think is the one that like reaches the most audiences. Iron, please stream
just
again.
a tiny bit.
Yeah.
With the goals thing, I think that a lot of the people that end up being super negative on specific leagues, I think a lot of that is because their goals are only related to league, like the temp league content. So if you see Scourge League and you get all excited about it, and all of your goals are like, well, I want to get every passive unlocked in the Scourge window, I want to get my 3rd Krangling slot unlocked, and all of your goals are there. If you end up not liking the league, or the league, just for whatever flops, either with you personally or through GGG's thing, then you're done. Like, you're absolutely done. You're forced burnout.
Yeah.
So having goals that exist outside of the temporary league is also, I think, really important.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, if you just use the framework of like challenges or the mechanics of the league as a goal, then you're not having fun. Like this is why I started the podcast with the number one question, which was, are we having fun? Because that truly is the only thing that matters. Like, if you're playing Path to the Job, that's one thing, but we don't talk about that, those people, like myself. But if having fun that's all there is. If you have at any point in time look down, you're like, why am I doing this? I don't think you're having fun. Probably might want to just take a step back, because it's your free time.
To give a practical example, my number one goal this league that I've never had before. I've never been able to focus enough on challenges to do 36. I've never had a reward other than maybe the ritual hideout that even interested me enough to go for it. And then I saw the size of the pet, not even necessarily how he looked.
Big,
I saw
chunky
the size
boy.
Of the dude,
yeah, he
and
is.
I was like, oh, this is happening, absolutely. So I got to 32 challenges in SSF, and I had other league goals that were kind of on the back burner, and I wanted to get to those. So I was like, the best way to continue my fun, get these done, and then move on to those goals was I just migrated to a character to standard, or to trade league.
Yep.
So that I could just buy because the last four were just a stupid grind.
Yeah,
so
purchasable grind of things. Yeah,
got the pet, and now while I'm doing the other goals, I have the pet with me. So
big chunky Asmodon. That is
the best.
But yeah, Ritual, that was a good one. That was one of the few leagues where I was like, oh, I want to get 36.
Yep.
That's a fuck. I want that hideout. Yeah, there's very few challenge leagues that I'm super excited about getting 36 on. I don't give a fuck about the portals. I never do. But the hideout, that's never happened before. That was special times.
Probably should also mention in terms of burnout that since we're streamers, there's some extra motivation, right?
Yeah.
To play the game and stream.
Yeah, like the sexual thrill. Yeah.
Like sometimes when I started like some goal or grind, maybe if I wasn't streaming, I probably would have abandoned it. But I want to keep everyone on the journey that watched. I want to keep it up and finish what I started. Definitely helps as well.
This is true. One more question from the section. We'll do the ones later on. So this one's from one of my mods in our Discord staple. His name is Death. He says, whoever shows the most interesting item on camera or in picture form gets a special prize. So, in just around us physically.
Oh, good.
I know Shaq's got something back there.
No, this is the thing. I'm in the middle of moving everything from my basement up to an actual stream room. So everything's gone.
What do we got?
I don't have a cam.
Where's my toddler? I don't know. Yeah, just use another human.
I have a mug next to me that has Path of Exile icon on it.
Okay.
Printed on it.
PoE mug, that's good.
I got it. Give me. Oh, Lighty, you're gonna love this. I noticed your Star City game shirt. I'll be right back.
You better have a Black Lotus or I'm kicking him. I'll show mine while he's... Actually, I'll wait for him. I want to see what he's got going on there. Here's our chance to talk shit, Manny. I think he has actually... Does he have Bluetooth headphones? You can hear me. Never mind. Can't talk shit.
I'm curious.
What if it's just a bomb and he's a terrorist?
Well, let's not rule it out, but...
It could be.
I wouldn't count that.
I don't know. His house looks very cartoony. It smells like a terrorist. What does he have? Oh, he didn't have wireless headphones. Okay.
This is a project that took 2 years of my life. Whenever I had free time at night watching Netflix, whatever, I would get a bunch of... I had friends donating me a bunch of basically garbage magic foils. Oh. And I spent about 1.5 years with acetone and wiping all the foils off.
Oh, no.
And making a custom cube that is about... I don't even know if these will show well on camera. Every single one of these has custom artwork printed on printer paper, like used spray adhesive to put them on. So every single thing in this cube, it's like...
So they're all real cards with your custom art foils on them.
100% of them are like real cards with the foil. Oh, you can't see them because they're they're all with the green screen. But They're all like custom artwork, so that's like char. It's like a
Yep.
found them all over the place. Even the lands, you probably love this if you're a Magic player. They're the John Avon lands.
Yep.
Actually, full borderless, 100% art. Spent 2 years of my life doing that, just kind of as I was, just watching TV, doing things like that.
It's gonna be great for the
It's freaking
podcast.
sweet.
You should throw them in the fireplace right now.
It's freaking sweet.
Just burn them all right now on the
Yeah.
podcast. That's a good item.
Someday.
I think Manny has a
Can
path
beat
mug.
that, man.
Shaq has an entire cube draft set of customized foils. I have a military grade MRE.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I've actually got a whole box of them.
You just have that sitting next to you.
Yeah, someone mailed me them in my P.O. box. They want me to eat it on camera.
Thought it was your
This
dinner
is
for today.
Menu 24 Southwest style beef and black bean. Warfighter recommended, warfighter tested. Look at that.
Good one.
It's going to probably make me shit
Perfect
my
for league
pants.
start, right?
I
Oh,
was
yeah.
just gonna say, you get a little porta potty down there. You never have to leave the computer.
I'll just shit myself eating MREs on stream.
That's interesting.
Oh, boy. We talked about PoE2 a little bit. I had a section for it, but just a couple things I want to get your guys' opinions on. Yeah. One of the ones was they ended the div card program. What do you guys think of that? Which was, if you didn't know, that we could buy div cards and then make them. And
Does that mean we won't get any more div cards at all, or are they going to make them themselves?
not from players, just from them, but probably a lot less than normal because they said something along the lines of they didn't want to keep diverting resources to that program. So
Interesting.
working on path 2. The main question I had, which was, do you think that things like battle royale being implemented in the game, which is like kind of chasing a dying game type or game mode, especially when they removed PvP from the game, or even things like making PoE hard mode, you think these things, like, does it feel good to hear those things being implemented or on their like vision board when leagues get delayed, leagues launch poorly, Path of Exile 2 is still just a dream in the sky? Does it kind of feel bad where it's like, why aren't you spending your time on that when we're still no Path 2? Does it ever like come to your mind? You're just happy to see the new thing, whatever it may be.
I'm pretty happy to see it. Like, Royale as an example, hopefully it didn't take much dev time. Didn't seem like it was a huge deal, and I had some fun for it, for a couple of days.
Yep.
Fair enough, right? And similar thing to hard mode. I hope it's just going to be a small thing that doesn't take a lot of resources. We don't know behind the scenes, obviously, but it's going to be like a new, kind of like an arcade mode of PoE. That's what I imagine.
Like a
hard mode would
roguelite
be.
type of thing. That's what I'm envisioning it as.
Just to keep the retention high. When you get bored of the main game, why not just fire up a hard mode character,
Yep. I guess the more in essence, before you answer Shaq, the more like in essence point is, would you if there was like a Magic Lamp ultimatum where they're like, not the league, the word pressed in front of you, but it's like, okay, so next league we're doing nothing for 3 months. It'll be only standard, no leagues, no whatever, but you will guarantee you get Path 2 in 1 year. Like, would you push that button? Would you take that? I hear a little
Maybe.
grumble. I hear a little Manny,
No.
little grumble
I
out of
don't
him.
think
You'd rather have just everything in the fog.
I don't know. I don't like. It's weird because in the one hand we kind of make jokes about like how far out PoE2 might be, but by the same token, it seems like anytime there's a deadline, there's a lot more potential for things to be not completely finished.
Yeah.
Even when it's something like if a 10-day event, well, we're gonna get to the week-long events,
Yep.
so I guess I won't push that there. But yeah, I'm worried about anything that has like a hard cap on it, which is why I actually appreciated more that they said, hey, we didn't get to the hard mode test this league, so we're gonna do it sometime in 3.17. I was like, that's to me.
Always
that's a
appreciate
good sign.
that. Yeah, I have no problem anytime when
I love that.
when they're like, because again, Path of Exile is totally fine for us right now. Like as experienced players, we have a lot of cool things we can do, and I don't think we'll really run out of stuff really anytime soon. We can always make new artificial challenges if we have to.
Right.
So to that point, if they're like, yeah, this isn't done yet to our standards, which even might be below our standards, like if GG's like our standards are not done yet, and then we're like, okay, if you want to push the league a month and then do a couple random events, like I'm all for that as long as it comes out a better product. Like I'm kind of, again, I don't even care if Path 2, like Path 2, the way they talk about it, it seems like it's a whole new game, but it's just 7 new acts and then a bunch of balances, really. So, like, I don't think it's going to be that revolutionary in that sense, but I have no problem with everything being pushed, 20, 30% longer, as long as it comes out très magnifique, Right. Same for League, same for items, same for events, all of that.
I think most people agree.
Yep.
Yeah, for the dev card or the div card program, it's like a little. It was funny because when you mentioned aspirational content before, I was just thinking like that was my like IRL aspirational content. Like I was kind of hoping as a stream, I think a lot of people have done this with their streaming community, but I was kind of hoping to be able to do something like related to I don't know, a cold dot related div card or something in the future.
Yeah.
So that's a little sad, but I kind of along the same vein, if they feel like that's detracting from their ability to put things in the game like they want to, I'm much more for them removing it and being like, hey, this is hampering us. And I appreciate it.
I was in the process of making one, but we didn't actually purchase it until the rug was ripped out. But the card I was going to make, I think, will probably just be added to the game anyway, which is just a replica unique, the Jack in the Box, but replica.
Wasn't it like that Box in the Jack or something like that?
We were initially trying to name it just replica Jack in the Box, but when I wrote that was his name, Nathan, the one guy from GGO. He's like, nah, we can't do that, lady. I was like, okay, fine. Yeah. So we ended up drawing something and naming a name, but we just didn't actually purchase it, so we got fucked. But that was just because I'm an idiot. Either way, I think it's fine. You can, anyone who's listening, it's hard to find them, but there are people who still have the voucher for not only div card but also unique creations. And those people, I'm not going to name names because those fuckers are hiking up the prices through the moon. But like, if it was $2,000 to make unique, one of the people I have spoke to in the past is charging $5,000 for that voucher. And for div cards, it was like $700, and they're charging like $2,000.
Yeah.
And some of them are like, oh, you can just RMT me mirrors. I'm like, okay, cool, man. Right. Iron was in the process of trying to find one through total legitimate means. Above board, quote unquote. But yeah, it's even then. It's like finding a guy is annoying. Most of them are kind of strange, and then a lot of them are charging crazy prices. So, it is what it is. I think for a lot of them, depending what your div card was, I'm sure a lot of them will probably get added into the game in some way, shape, or form. So it's not too much of a bother. And also, there's about 1 billion div cards, so it's fine. Yes, we're gonna talk about the week-long events now because I have fun. I have fun in week-long events, and some of them I very much dislike, but some of them I had more fun this time than ever before. So there was 5 different week-long events added. We'll talk about them one at a time, and obviously we'll probably not pay attention to that and go on tangents either way, because that's what happens. So it was Endless Delve, then Gauntlet, then Endless Heist, then Atlas Invasion, then Delirium Everywhere. So Endless Delve, if you didn't know what that is, it's just you're locked in Delve, and it's endless. You have infinite soul fight, so you could go any which way you want as long as you want. And there are a couple amendments to the game to accommodate this. There are lilies there, so you have your gem vendor and your currency vendor. Every 10 levels, you get 3 extra passives. That's going to equal out what you would receive for just questing through the acts. And on every eye level breakpoint of lab, you just unlock that lab. So 33, 55, 68, 75, you get all those labs respectively. And then there are also breakpoints in which you get the res hit from going through Act 5 and 10, which I believe was 55 and 70, maybe? Or
40.
Is it 40? I think it might be 50.
Yeah.
That's one of the two.
It's brutal. It's
40,
45.
One of the two.
40 or 45.
It's earlier than you feel like. I remember that. The first one hits hard. The second one, not so much. But for me, event aside, the feeling of getting the 4 passives on the 10th level and then the labs automatically is so good that it makes me sad going back to regular path. But aside from that, the events are interesting because it's a microcosm of whatever the Endless Ones was. There's Delve and then there's Heist. We could basically talk about them at the same time instead of sectioning them off. And Heist, just like Delve, is the same thing, which is you just heist. Regular contracts don't cost any shekels, but Grand Heists still do. And then they removed the quest contracts, and they removed the finding of the individual thieves, the little helpers, which, again, that felt great. And I wish that was just in the game. Yeah. And it's like a very bittersweet thing, Endless Events, because whether you like them or not, if you have experienced the positive aspects of that microcosm, whether it's the free soul fight, the automatic levels, the ascendancies, the removal of the annoyance of the leagues, man, I really just wish those things were kind of added to the game to a degree, because it just feels really bad going back to the base things. So what were your base thoughts on the endless events in general?
Well, I didn't really play them this time around. I played Heist until level 50, and then I was super done.
For just to get your box? Just to get the box, that's it?
I mean, I was going to give it a shot. I was considering playing it longer, but it just wasn't fun.
Now, did you play it before they tripled the experience?
Before, yeah, I played on the start right away.
Okay, so that sucked, but if for the first...
it was testing, right? It was
the first couple days, you got dick for experience pre-68, and then after that, they literally like tripled it to where you got to 68 in like 3.5 hours. So I also did that, but then I rerolled a character to feel both sides, and I can assure you that probably much like you, the first time it was like, this isn't so great, but the second time it was like, holy shit, this is so much fun because I'm zooming. We'll just keep going.
Yeah. You go ahead.
The endless height, I feel like I have I had the most unfortunate perspective on the leveling thing, because when they implemented the change, it was from levels 1 to 68 that they like tripled the XP.
Yep.
When that patched, my character was 67.
Yeah, it's brutal.
So I literally got one level of the triple XP, and
it was a great level. It was such a good level.
I don't even remember it. It was so fast.
Oh,
but yeah, it was so endless heist. Well, endless delve started first, and I had played it. My intention was to use it to test out builds for like my current long-term PoE project, which is preventing my burnout, which is making a build for every class, like for new play, like making a guide for every class. And so I was going to use it to test out a bunch of builds, and Subtractum actually convinced me to. He was like, "That'd be fun if you do like hardcore SSF," and I was like, "You know what? You're right." So I re-rolled that, starting in Delve, and I played every event except for Atlas Invasion in hardcore SSF, just for a change of pace, just for some more fun. And Delve was interesting. I died, but like in it was like mid 80s, but it was fun. And then Heist I played a ton of. I did not play Endless Heist for the last 3 days because of Christmas, but even with not playing the last 3 days, I finished 11th Occultist. So I was like near the top. I was borderline competing for a demi for a few days, and I played a ton of it. That event was really fun to me because it was an actual puzzle of it stops scaling. It's one of the few things that stopped scaling. So you could get your characters damaged to a certain point and then just purely focus on defenses or whatever. That was a fun puzzle to play. Delve was better than it was last time just because they've had a chance to iterate on it. But I know everyone else, it seemed like everyone else hated it. I had the most fun in Endless Heist.
Yeah, Heist is interesting because you get so much, if you want to compare it to Delve, the experience you get, I'm just going to not even count the triple thing because like the baseline experience from Heist from 1 to like 90, I think is much lower than Delve. I'm going to mark that by the fact that every time I were to do these events, which hasn't been a ton, I'll get to level 90 in Endless Delve in like, I don't know, 15 hours. Like it's really quick. But after 90 to 92, Delve gets way harder, and then the experience just caps. But Heist doesn't get, like you're saying, doesn't get really any harder, and the experience at 83 is just better than Delve at 83, because I think more mobs are rare in Magic maybe, or just the way that it's coded. And you also double back in the pack size for like certain layouts, like the robot layouts are like super high. But also the loot from Heist is, I think across the board, just way better than Delve. So your characters get kitted much faster, especially when it comes to unique drops. They're like 10 times as many unique drops at probably Heist than Delve.
And targetable.
And targetable, whether you're doing like, oh, you want uniques? Okay, I'm going to do brute force, I'm going to do engineering, and then like you could just walk in, no unique, walk out. Like it's quite nice to that point. But so they're very different. But yeah, it was, I think Endless Heist is much easier gearing early on and then much more experienced later on. And Delve is kind of the flip side of that.
Yep.
So I do like the concept of those events a lot. They're like, I said this before, like an arcade mode of PoE.
For sure,
like
yeah.
It's like a custom game mode, completely different than the base game. I feel like there's no harm whatsoever running those once a year. Like, it's just a fun little change of pace. The Heist one didn't really hit the mark this time, but they're gonna iterate on it hopefully and make it better.
I'm telling you, if you just played after the experience buff, you would be singing a different tune for sure.
I mean, they could still add, like the bosses and maybe make blueprints more common or more accessible. Like there's some changes they could have made apart from the XP, right?
Yep.
Make it, maybe add like more pack size even to it, make it a bit crazier or something.
Sure. Or add like a random mod, so maybe like the only drop rare or something. I don't know, whatever. Definitely cool. The one thing I just in general with week events that I get a sour taste, and it doesn't even affect me, is the fact that if they're running events, it's almost always going to be the third month of League, and not that people play. It's definitely the least played amount, especially in a trade league setting. But I don't want it to become a staple that month 3 is just a write-off for trade league, which kind of is the case almost always when they implement these events. It's like whatever. Oh, these events are happening. There's 3 events in a row before the new league launches. So then the last month of league is just like dead. Almost like, why just not make the month league 2 months long and then just have events like at that point?
Yeah. On that same point, I feel like it came way too early this time. Wasn't the event like 6 or 7 weeks in?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it begs the question if they planned on. That really shows that they didn't plan on pushing the league back three weeks, because they would have, if they did, they would have just put these closer, and then it wouldn't have had a very the same feeling. Yeah, so it was supposed to end like this week, pretty much, but now it's a month from now. So, yeah, I think endless. So we were saying like endless, events. The only other thing that Shaq mentioned, simulacrum. What else could have an endless, whatever? Like what even could exist in the similar sense? Because endless simulacrum would work. It would just be like endless ledge, and because there's even the breaks between each thing, you have plenty of time to loot and fiddle.
I mean, so when you fail an endless simulacrum, like when you fail the wave, do you go back to level 1?
Well, you just make it hard. Just make it hardcore only.
Oh, I see.
So,
it's going to be very anticlimactic because I can't actually remember what his specific idea was, but Sir Gog had an idea for like a timed event where basically your character had a specific amount of playtime, and it was almost felt like a Rogue Legacy type of game where it was like a roguelite because your character had a limited amount of time to play. And I can't remember all the mods he had on it, but his idea was really cool. It was just I saw it like a week ago and I can't remember it. But that wasn't like league content. It was just like an alternate race idea. The one that I think could be interesting, if you could choose to tap out a bit or go to a hideout or something between like after a wave break point, would be like endless blight. If it just continuously ramped up, but then every 5 waves or so you could go to your hideout or whatever.
That'd be interesting also.
Yep. Yeah, true.
It'd be kind of fun.
Or even they could do things with ultimatum. That's another one you could do.
Yes.
Between each wave, you can just have a stash. I really hope they implement something like along these lines, because I just love the idea of these events.
Oh, we could have synthesis, right? That's an obvious one.
You could, yeah.
They just could give us a synthesis nexus back, and we just
they're just basically playing Last Epic again. We've gone full circle.
Yeah.
I was gonna have a section in the podcast talking about other ARPGs, because there are a bunch that's, I would say it's more competitive now than ever, to the point where more people I know are not even playing Path and just playing other games. They're looking forward to like Last Ark, Diablo 4, Last Epic, or it's just. But we'll figure that out. Anyway, did you guys both play the Gauntlet?
I did.
I didn't this time.
Okay.
Just a little bit. I played to 70. I think I died at 75 or so.
It's the same as always. Like nothing really new.
I mean, it was. The mods changed up a little bit. Leveling was, if I'm remembering correctly, I get my gauntlets mixed up. I think leveling was easier across the board, and then the bosses were a bit rougher because they had like 4. I think it was like 4 projectiles or something like that.
Yeah.
It was basically literally. You just unbound the Scourge button. Like, you didn't even want to accidentally press it. I literally had it unbound for like 4 days.
Yeah.
So it was rough, but it was, it was a typical. I like hardcore too, so that's it was fun. But I didn't re-roll or anything after I died. Speaking
of hardcore, I played hardcore in Atlas Invasion as a group, and it was one of the most fun things I think I've ever done in Path of Exile. I did a video about it on Christmas, but we did Atlas Invasion. For those who don't know, it was in each zone were 5 bosses that were 5 Maven witnessable bosses. Like, so it could be any map boss, it could be Ceres, it could be a Breachsword, minus the synthesis bosses, which I maybe they're still in there. I just never saw them. No one I know saw them. They didn't mention they were being removed, but I'd never heard of them or saw them, or no one I knew saw them. So I guess they were just not there. But like, it could be like, you enter the coast and there's just Chula. Like, that could just happen. And then they always dropped a unique. That was the other thing, which was also affected by quantity modifier. So if you would kill one, they drop like 3 uniques out pretty often.
Yep.
But we did that as hardcore as a group, and it was just like such a fun time to do it, because it was just so difficult for the first couple zones, and as expected, if you were to do it solo, which I did after the fact just to get to 50 for fun, and you were to get a couple uniques, it pretty much is so easy after that because you're just kitted out like no one's business. But the first couple zones were just like so much chaos where you enter the zone and then there's Toll and it one-shots all 5 people in hardcore. Like that was very enjoyable. So I liked that one because it was just something we've never had before. Again, it's like Invasion but cranked to it felt very like Mayhem reminiscent almost, which I really like the chaos of those events.
I didn't get to play it because it started at a pretty bad timing for me, but it sounded like it would be really fun for the early acts.
Yes.
But kind of like fall off in maps.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's not really much like exciting endgame to do it, but definitely sounds like a fun event to play.
There was a couple close calls, like at Ziri early on was very spooky. And then there's a couple times you enter a small room and there's like there's Shaper and Elder and at Ziri in the same corridor. And you're like, And obviously you could skip it and log out.
Side areas were the best.
Oh yeah, they were crazy.
It extended to all side areas, so you have this tiny little zone that had 5 endgame bosses. They were insane.
Yep.
And a lot of those are corridors. Yeah.
The only problem with the entire event is there was a bug. But aside from there was a bug where Shav was bugged, where she was all her stats were mapped here. So no matter where you were, she would one-shot you if she touched you. But aside from that, it was great. Were you gonna say, Shaq?
Yeah. No, it was actually pretty much exactly what Manny said. Was I had a lot of fun leveling early on, and then I actually stopped because we had some other stuff to I was going on. Especially, it was really awkward being around Christmas season. Or just the actual days of Christmas and New Year's. So I hit 70 and had to stop after that. But it was a ton of fun. The very first thing that I saw of the event was I stepped out on the coast. I walked around the corner. I saw a little blue circle appear on the ground, and then some lightning bolts streaming toward it. And I was like, oh, we're just gonna start with Eradicator. Okay. Yeah. And I just turned around and remade the zone. I was like, it was insane, but it was a lot of fun. And I will say they did do a good job of, because they were like the Maven Witness versions. Yep. It wasn't quite as unfair as it may have seemed at first. Like
for sure,
you weren't walking into already fired at you Shaper beams, things like that. Like. But it was a lot of fun.
A lot of their abilities were tampered to accommodate the Maven zone, so they were like not neutered at all, but they were just didn't have a lot of mechanically conflicting abilities. That being said, some of the things that are still pretty crazy are still pretty crazy, like Piety, the Malformation one. That beam is map wide. There is no limit to the beam, so if it goes off, you have to hide behind an object, or things like Shaper Beam, like. If it targets you, it's just going, like, or Toll, those balls just keep going, like there's there's a lot of fun things were happening during the event, and then Delirium Everywhere. I was gonna play it, and then I heard how I misunderstood the event, and then after that, so I waited for people to play it, and then they played it, and they told me that it was just not what I thought it was, and I was expecting it to be. I thought there was going to be guaranteed 2 bosses in each zone also. And I thought it was going to be always 100% delirious. So so it would be like very, very difficult. Yeah, but that I was expecting because in reality, a lot of these events were kind of ramping up in difficulty. And like it was right Atlas Invasion just happened. I was like, oh, it's got to be topping that. And then Delirium Everywhere happened. It's like, oh, you walk in the coast and it's just like everything's kind of like a little bit tankier. And that's it. And I was like, oh, this is like a letdown kind of. So what I was expecting was 100% delirious everywhere, 2 bosses in each zone, like fuck you hard, and it wasn't. Yeah. It just wasn't that. Huh.
Yeah, I started playing it again. I was using it to test out a different build. I thought maybe like Bleed Glad would be really good because you're just gonna let monsters run themselves to death basically. Turns out it was insane. Everyone's like posting like in my Discord and stuff. Like people are just posting like I don't even know how you're supposed to do that. And I was like, have you thought about maybe just applying a bleed and running away?
Yeah.
It was fun until I think I want to say like Ledge was okay, but like Lower Prison when you realized like about an hour in that they weren't rotating the percentages on the zones like they've done with like the was it Tempest that would like rotate every hour, right? Yep. So we thought there was hopefully going to be a bunch of fun interaction where it would be kind of like Tempest, where it was like everybody in global chat would be like, "Hey, run this zone for a little bit. It's got a good one."
It's got uniques or whatever. It's got currency.
Yeah, like if you skip, if you go into like Act 6 and you want your Aberrath skill point, that thing's 90% delirious. Maybe you'll wait until someone notices, like, "Oh, hey, that's now." 40% this hour. So it just wasn't that, and so you just have permanent like whatever or Brutus is like 85% delirious, and it's like not really that hard. It's just pure time sink.
Yep.
And for me it got stale so fast that like just to make a point that it wasn't worth people's time if you didn't enjoy it, I waited till I was on stream the other night and I had a level 48 character and I was like, this loot box isn't worth the amount of time it takes. Like, to me personally, it's not worth my time even to grab the last 2 levels. So I just was like, I'm done. I'm not. Yeah. It just happened to not. I don't know. It didn't vibe with me very well. But
that's been what I've heard for everyone's overarching opinion on it.
Even people that are like competing for demis right now are like literally, their stream titles are like, I'm in pain as their like top 5 ascendancy.
Yeah.
It was definitely a very difficult event. Like, the fact that it was voided made me and I think most people expect that it would be a loot fiesta, you know? Everyone remembers Ethereum is dropping a ton of loot, but either due a bug or just maybe on purpose, it's just one reward no matter how much delirium we have on there, and it just feels like hard mode or something, you know? It's just a harder version of the game.
Yep. Which begs the question. Oh, sorry, you keep going. Yep.
On my first day when I played it, because I went for like a demi race in it, and I figured, you know, everyone's gonna have a hard time, so this is like, you know, kind of hard to compete in a hard setting. That's kind of fun. But yeah, when I if it wasn't for the racing aspect, I think it's just not a very enjoyable event.
What are your guys' thoughts on just the fact that like just voided events in general? What is there even? Dare I say even a point to voided events now? Because if the
really
I don't understand. I don't get the point where like the economic impact. So if they're going to their parent, the thing is like most of the events occur at the end of the league anyway, so no one's fucking trading, and it doesn't even matter because it's all going to go to standard, which they've established they don't care about standard economy in that way. So what is the damage of having even an event like Endless Heist when there's 3 days left in the league when the event's over, you know, and like what does it matter?
Events, those are a technical thing, right?
Yeah, for the white items, whatever. So we'll just forget about that one. What about Atlas Invasion or Delirium Everywhere? What is the point in voiding those leagues?
I was wondering the same thing, man.
Yeah.
That's the question I've been asking like 100 times last week. It's just
particularly
it's harder than the normal game, but for some reason it's voided. Doesn't make any sense.
I think the only argument I would see is if we got what people were expecting, which is like kill Shaper on the coast, get a Shaper unique drop.
That's
even
level
that
1
was not happening. Like, you just can't.
So what? Yeah. So to that point, if you have a level 1 Starforge, what does that mean? Like,
yeah,
there's no more low level dueling. So there's no way to cheese it. Like, there's no more PvP. You're not going to be a bracket PvPing, you know, different people. Like, it's what it might just be a blanket statement that like events are voided. Like, this is just the thing. But yeah, it just seems again like I don't know. Okay. Anyway, moving on. We have a couple more Q&A questions, and then we'll swing back to more stuff. Where the fuck did I put it? Oh, it's up here. Okay, where is it? This question basically just spurs conversation, nothing more. Which is and it's also phrased in a definitive statement, but that's fine. Why will GGG go bankrupt in 2 years if they keep up the current trajectory? Expand. Why will they go 2 years? So
what a great question.
Yeah, I've the quote I've said on stream, which is I think Path would have to do everything wrong for 2 years, and other companies would have to do everything right for 2 years to just kill the company outright. Like, and I don't think that's really going to be the case. There's for sure is a case to be made where if Path 2 just gets push, but never comes out, and the player base, which is currently happening, slowly kind of hemorrhages to the point of neutering the company, that could happen, in which case there could the bigger fear is that whatever line would be drawn by one of the backing like Tencent would be like, okay, your decisions are now costing us too much money as investors, therefore we are going to inject some of our 10-centness into the game, and then now we have some sort of weird pay-to-win function in even a small aspect of the game, which then ripples to more people leaving, and then more injection of 10-centness. That could be a thing, but again, I still think that would have to only be the case if we don't get Path 2 in 2 years, and things keep getting pushed, and other games like Diablo 4 drops, and it's pretty okay. Doesn't have to be great. It just has to be pretty okay. Lost Ark comes out, and it's pretty okay. Last Epic keeps being pretty okay. If each game would just take like 5 to 7% of the Path player base, that would affect something, bottom line wise. I don't think they're going to go bankrupt. It would take a mass amount of effort for them to go like totally belly under.
So many like panic buttons that they can hit on the way there too that would extend that. Like it's PoE2 alpha, PoE2 beta, even a little like they have all these events that are lined up that they can keep running. You've got stuff like introducing alternate leveling, like the things that they said they don't want to do that are just a temporary stopgap. Like there's no way, it just can't.
A fear in a way is I actually would really hope they don't do PoE2 alpha or beta, or if it is, it's under like NDA, like full NDA, because nothing. I think if they start showing too much of the, I think they've already shown too much Path 2, in my personal opinion. I know they have to show stuff, but
for how much is going to change,
yeah, I think they do. They need to show like very little more, if anything, because otherwise, when it hits, we're all going to know. Like that's one of the. Not this is a real tangent, but like every time they have like World of Warcraft has new raid expansions, and prior to their real release is a 3-month testing server where you know everything pretty much, and it just feels like all the gas is removed from the balloon when it's like we know all the mechanics, we know all what everything looks like. I just lose all the fun. So I hope that doesn't happen with Path 2, and we actually don't get like very much, or if like some of us are in the testing, it's like under NDA, can't say shit, can't show shit. And it's just like, boom, then Path 2 hits, and it's like a fucking freight train, you know?
Yeah, I don't really know what they would gain. Like, using as an example, the whole new socketing and linking system. What is the benefit of us knowing about that for 3 years, as opposed to, like, dropping it and having people lose their minds as they realize they can have, like, 10-6 links or, you know, stuff like that, where they also have locked themselves into a system now that is going to be a riot if it changes.
Yes, if it doesn't deliver to that degree, or is a neutered version of that we heard about 2 years ago, like it's going to be bad. So, Manny,
true.
Say things.
Yeah,
say words.
I mean, they definitely did a lot of mismanaging this year. I felt, you know, communication-wise, and a couple weird choices. Like just recently, these events have been kind of meh. For example. Like overall, like when people say downward trajectory, I guess they're referring to like the balance as well, where they do like, you know, the division of Chris Wilson slowing down the game, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Like I'm a lot more optimistic about that stuff than most people are. Like, like if they just instead of like hitting the avenue peaks and then falling down hard with power creeping the game up, they just kind of like accepting that they've hit the peak and like kind of stagnating. And
for sure, I think in general Path has honestly been, in my opinion, like if you think about the length of how long it's been around for, I would say like in the last 5 to 6 years there hasn't been I don't think a mass amount of innovation considering how long the game's been around for, which I think is not the end of the world, but like I think that Path is definitely on like you said, kind of like a stagnation to a degree. I definitely don't think it's like I'm very seldom surprised, more than I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. Like that kind of feeling is, you know, I'm not like blown away. I haven't been blown away in years, I would say, which could be just me being whatever. But yeah,
I mean, I do wish they would do that. Like so many things that we wish they would do. You know, like a rebalance of skills, make things more viable, and like so many awesome things that people should just do them, but they're not happening. Maybe they're harder than we think, or maybe they have different priorities. But then again, there's always a lot of good things in these big expansions, like the one that is coming in a couple of weeks. I'm pretty optimistic there that we're gonna get wowed again.
Yeah,
just like the Maven one last year.
To that point, like, so right now, so when Maven was introduced, that was a whole other layer of endgame that just existed, not like in tangent with it didn't like exist with the current endgame, it just existed on top of it. And what I mean by that is, even to the rate of the current Watchstone system, you don't accrue them at the same time you accrue Maven completion. They don't happen always at the same time, so you're like kind of jogging around a little bit to get everything done. My fear is that there's just a third layer of something, which again for us is basically fine. But you now have to, like, I have to get stones, and then I have to get the Maven invitations, and now I have to get the whatever, the new thing. And it just doesn't, the current two systems don't really mesh together. And if there's a third system that doesn't mesh together, that's like a real, like a layer cake of shenanigans bouncing back and forth. And the bigger part is just, like, a lot of people feel sad when they have to now spend 40 hours setting up, like, the end game. And if there's just like a new layer of shit, it's like, I think it really has to all kind of come together, and whatever they do has to bring everything into one path of exile, because otherwise it's going to be just way more, like, another layer of shit is just too much shit to have to set up.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that quite a lot, like what this next expansion will entail, and as you just said, I don't think it's going to be another layer on top. I expect it to replace, like, the Cirrus layer, basically, like that whole endgame. But it's so interwoven with Maven now, because Maven rewards are watchstones.
Yeah.
So and Cirrus gives you the citadels and the watchstones. So
they could just
be in a similar way, or like a huge rework with Maven as well. Like, I don't know.
Hypothetically, I'm just trying to throw things out there. If they removed the optional factor of Maven interacting with bosses, and then just reduce the level in which you start doing them, that could just replace the Watchstone system in its entirety.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And then you could just have Cirrus do Cirrus things while it's all happening. That could be a way. But then that doesn't change the fact that what the fuck is the new layer stuff. So I don't know what that's going to be. It's definitely a real balancing act. And I would say, historically, I don't have a lot of faith in their balancing acts when it comes to, like, delicately doing things. And I don't think any of this affects us. Yet again, I don't think this makes a fucking difference for us, because whatever bullshit they add, our playtime will just circumvent it. It doesn't even matter.
True.
But, like, if you're Joe Schmo playing 2 hours a day and you get another 20-hour task to set up your endgame, that's a kick in the nuts. Like,
I mean, just this league they reduced the Atlas progression time. You know, the complexity by a lot, halving down the regions, halving down the stones you need to get. Does that mean now they can pull off a new expansion that just expands it a lot again,
and it puts it right back to where it used to be? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
So if it was 50 hours down to 30, now we're back at 50. Like,
yeah, I mean, it would make sense in a way, right? They could say we just made it shorter, now it's back to the regular length again. Yeah. Or you could argue, well, what was the point of making it shorter
if you're just going to reintroduce it? Yeah,
exactly. And people like the shorter one, right? I've heard only positive things about it.
I've actually heard something interesting, which is, I've heard the same thing a couple times, which is very fascinating to me because it doesn't affect me at all. Again, but I've heard a lot of people complain that the game got harder because they're reaching a higher plateau of Cirrus sooner. They don't have the same level of gear, or maybe levels that they would have had at that previous position. So, like, if they reach Cirrus 8 now at level 85 and they have whatever X amount of gear, previously they had, like, level 90 and way better gear because it took longer to get there, and now they're getting discouraged because they feel like their build or what they're doing isn't as good. I've heard that also, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
But that's also them being a little bitch. So, moving on.
Yeah, maybe that's how Scourge stays in the game. You get all the watchstones, you get to Cirrus 8, and then you crangle your Atlas, and it unlocks a new 100 maps. But
I hope so.
They're all corrupted versions, and
God give me the strength. We have two big questions. The other one just says, "Why is PP so small?" Good.
I was like projecting.
I was just cut off at a young age. It was a massive circumcision error. What are other ways to get over 100? Okay, hold on. Let me read this because this is English. What are some other ways to get over 100 uniques per map? I watched Lighty do this in Scourge, but didn't have time to play this league. Also, the same level of drops were in Harvest when opening with more multipliers. Okay, so the question they're asking is about loot pinata mechanics, effectively, which have existed a couple times in the game. Currently, it's just Scourge is one. I think Harvest was probably way crazier, objectively, just because of the quantity. In Scourge, I've had to make a filter that filters out a lot of stuff. But in Harvest, I had to hide 90% of the uniques in game. Just by that metric, I assume there was way more shit. Harvest required a lot of setup compared to Scourge, which is just toss in a tier 3 map. Both of them probably equal a similar result if you were to average it out.
You can do that same thing for Scourge too. I've been doing that the last couple of weeks where we...
I've done like gilded reliquary keys and that sort of stuff in Sauna maps.
The Sauna map with winged scarabs, and then the explosions are insane. If you kill a boss on that map,
It's like
it literally drops
every
unique
item is a
for,
unique.
like,
Yeah.
15 seconds straight.
Yeah.
Like you just see this like stream of uniques dropping down, and you hear the voice, the sound line, and it just goes on for like 10, 15 seconds. You just stand there, and it's just the one monster drops like 400 uniques or nothing. Like it's kind of nuts. Yeah.
To that question, what are some other ways? Currently, there's only really that way. I would say to that level, there's only just Scourge, and most likely there won't be something equivocal to that probably for another year because they tend to be spaced a good amount apart. If you were doing it like Delirium, 100% on certain conditions dropped a lot of uniques. Harvest dropped a metric fuck ton. Scourge can drop a metric fuck ton. It's not common it happens because they tend to reel back when it does happen. But the gist of it is just you stack a bunch of quantity and rarity on a mechanic that stacks a bunch of quantity and rarity. You put on a winged reliquary scarab or whatever reliquary scarab, and then just any place you can get quantity in the game, you just grab it and toss it on a map. And ipso facto, everything that drops more, and they all drop unique. That's the gist of it. But
yeah, if you didn't have Scourge, the next best thing would just to focus on spawning beyond. You
yes,
would go for
so
a double beyond
in the
map,
beyond zone, you could double, triple beyond, to that degree.
Yeah, it's not. It's probably like 5% as good as Scourge Magic Find.
It's a huge difference.
It's a whole different level, but it's the best thing you would do. You would still find a couple hundred unique per map, but not 10,000. You know.
To answer the question for the future. If it does happen, you'll definitely hear about it because everyone will be doing it. Just like this league, just like in Harvest. If not, someone on like one of the unique boys will be doing it.
It's probably fairly worth making sure that it's not an unintended bug, like the whole ritual thing in group play with like never closing the rituals. Probably worth, if you ever have a question, maybe wait a day or two to see if it gets patched in 6 hours.
Yes. If you ever asked yourself, does this feel sussy? It probably is.
Yep.
There's no harm in waiting a day. The league is 3 months, and if it is content that you can control and that you're not having to like. It's not like you're purchasing something and taking advantage of something. It's going to be there for the entire time. You're in no rush. Like setting up these things, normally getting your character to the point where it's set up doesn't even take that long. Like to start MFing in maps and towers for Scourge, like isn't even that hard. You do need like a couple uniques that like have IQIR to a degree, but like the setup is not that massive. The more annoying thing is getting the fucking scarabs, like the higher tier scarabs probably. But yeah, if it happens again in the future, I'll tell you myself. There you go.
Yeah.
With the last patch, GGG signaled that they wanted to shift to more chase-style uniques. So I imagine like Mage Blood, Squire, that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with this design philosophy? And if not, how would you like to see it shift for a more enjoyable experience? I don't really mind them adding any of the Uber content as long as the accessibility of things like the breaches and the timeless ones I don't really like so much, but like the Blight ones. The Blight maps feel shit, but the accessibility of that and the accessibility of the unique feels fine to me. Like, if you were to run 100 and it takes you whatever time to get it, that doesn't feel too bad. Things like Mage Blood, it's rare as fuck. I don't mind it being rare as fuck because although it is probably the best unique in the game, what it does is nothing build enabling in the real sense. Like, it's a belt that covers all your defenses in the entire game, really. But you could also just do that previously. So it's not like something that is like there's not a build that requires a Mage Blood, I would say. That I'm sure some of the comments like my 9/1 passive voices Scion requires it because otherwise I can't get capped res. Yeah, okay, but like you know what I'm saying. Like it's nothing fancy. It just is the best thing in the game at doing the most vanilla shit possible. But there's other things like the Squire I would say are probably really build enabling to a degree. And I don't mind it being rare. What I don't like is the fuck you of the fucking other shield, like added the oppressor. That was just Chris stroking himself in the dark room somewhere as he added that to the game. Like that was the most unnecessary addition when it came to chancing ever. But yeah, I don't mind things being uber rare, especially if there's because again, like as long as it's not like strictly build enable. I don't think actually. I guess Stasis Prison's the only real one that's like build enabling of the new things, right? Because the amulet's just an extra link. Strangle Grasp is just like really, really good. And, I mean, in most cases, it's gonna be like probably make it a rare anyway if you want to do it. Mage Blood again is just like so good, but like you don't really need it. And then the gloves are quite common. The what are they called? Gravebinds. Those are quite common.
Yeah, I can't take it all.
Yeah, and
I really enjoyed how Strangle Grasp is really fun because some people are using it in really powerful stuff in their builds, but you can't search for it on PoE Ninja because they've made it into a rare, so you actually have to go manually find them because you can't search it anymore. I like that a lot.
When it comes to chase uniques, there's like 2 different ways they can be rare, right? There's Mageblood and Squire or Headhunter they can drop anywhere. You might be in Act 5 and you just find it. But it's incredibly rare. I like those.
Same.
You know, and then there's the other one that is insanely hard content to either grind to or just even do it, like the Stasis Prison or the Ulnitol's Vow, where those are very different, right? Because you don't find those luckily in like at level 70. There's no way you find them early, or if you're a poor or casual gamer, you only find them when you're already rich as fuck, basically.
And I don't even mind those as long as, again, like if it's not like baseline build enabling. Like Stasis Prison does something nothing else in the game does. That's why to me it's frustrating that it is like the rarest fucking thing in the game when there's nothing in the game that does that, and it's not even that good. Like outside of the context of the builds it works for. But like whether you get either necklace or whatever, like those are great, but like it's not make or break for certain situations. But Stasis Prison is just so niche, but it's just basically inaccessible for everybody. I would much rather have Mageblood locked behind Legion than Stasis Prison.
I do agree with that. Yeah, it's having things that are generically powerful, Mageblood, Headhunter, anything in that vein, even things like Shavs and all that are not necessarily mechanically build enabling. Yeah, I'm fine with them being as rare as anything. I mean,
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it comes back to the other point from earlier. The question is right there on the bottom left. How deal with burnout? The long-term goals. And those uniques are a perfect long-term goal, even for like for us who play like a shit ton, way too much. But even the more casual players, they can maybe try to get one of those one day.
Yeah, it just sucks for a thing like Stasis Prison because that shit's like 2-3 mirrors in Trade League, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
Like it definitely is not a 2-3. It's not a 2 mirror unique in its utility in any way, shape, or form.
It's really hard to get.
But like it's just scarcity, Like Squire being like whatever it is, 100x or 200. Like that makes sense because it totally changes the dynamic of some builds. You could have like 9 link wands and like it's a whole thing. And Mageblood again is just generically really strong, but yeah.
I only know of 2 Stasis Prisons in SSF and only one of them in the league. I know that Legi found one 2 days ago.
Yep.
And I know one of my viewers found one in SSF Standard, but that's about it.
Yeah, they're just it's just disgustingly rare.
Nobody ever does in SSF. Like getting to the point where you can run those is hundreds of hours into a league, or we have to do it in Standard.
And I mean, farming 5 ways is not fun either. It's just so much time. that's the big thing.
Also,
I mean, honestly,
like
if we had the passive like Ritual League where you can run 1 Scarab and you get like 3 emblems. Back in Ritual League when we had the very OP Atlas passives. I wouldn't mind farming 5 ways, but now you run a Gilded Scarab and you had like your 50 splinters if you're lucky. That's just
on a good day, and it's for the wrong fucking faction. Yeah. Where do you say, Shaq?
Also, on the point that you made about it being not just super rare, but build enabling without being like the best thing in the game, it's also kind of in a weird spot because for people that are specifically trying to just collect uniques because that's what people do, that's fine. But why then would, unless you want to just hit it to sell it and make a ton of mirrors, if you are going to be playing a build that's powerful enough to do that content, unless you're collecting a unique just to collect it, why would you even then be farming for it? Because if it's going to not enable a build that's as powerful as the build you're currently playing, you're basically farming a unique to step down a tier in power.
Correct. Which is why it's so rare in Trade League is for the most part, because like it's even if it's 2 mirrors, you run the number on the amount of the cost of running 5 ways, and if the dropper is 1 in 200 or whatever the fuck it is, it's just realistically you're losing money almost all the time, and it's so much effort to run those. So it equals out to not being worth for Trade League and being so absurd for solo self-fun outside of the vein of collecting it. For making a build for it or for a collection, you would never do it. Which is
so you're saying the Stasis would be better off as a global unique, right?
Definitely, yeah. Or anything. Or anything but what it currently is.
Because I would consider it pretty build enabling, right?
It's definitely build enabling. I don't even know what the fuck build it enables, but the fact that it does thing that nothing else does makes it build enabling. I mean, it doesn't have to be
Why?
the big thing is to clarify, like when I mean a build enabling unique is I mean it does something truly unique that does not exist on existing items. It doesn't have to even make an existing build, but as long as there's potential for something in the future to utilize this to make a build, it is a build enabling unique. So if the Squire does something that nothing else can do in the game, or Stasis Prison does something nothing else can do in the game, that in itself adds a mass amount of value to it, like hypothetically, because if you like, oh, I wish I could do this, well, only that does that, and the only way you can do this is by doing this ridiculous vein of farming. That's what causes the problem. Like, technically, you don't need a Shavs. You could use a Solaris Lurker. You could use one of these 8 other uniques. Shavs is the best in slot. It's the luxury item for the build. Granted, it's a very affordable staple, but there are many ways to go low life without a Shavs. There is no way to have 100% life recoup or whatever the fuck Stasis Prison does without Stasis Prison. So you can't do like these looping mechanics. It doesn't exist outside of that. So that's the problem. It's just that why make something that is, I would almost call it a meme item, like, really, because it's based off of the temporal returning thing that like nobody and their grandma fucking uses anyway. So it's just, in its current iteration, it's just very strange that was the thing they chose. I'm trying to think of what like is the best Legion item that they could put in place of it, but I mean they could have just put Mage Blood there, and it would have made more sense, I think.
Yeah, maybe. It would actually make it worth to farm that content, because like Shaq said, you're not gonna farm Uber Legions, hundreds of hours of setup and farm to get a unique that enables your build that is kind of worse than the build you're already running, that you need to run to even do the content. But if there was something like Mage Blood or the Ulna Toll emulate behind it, that is just an upgrade for everything. Then hell yeah.
For sure.
I wish they would add more uniques like Squire and Mage Blood right now, like global uniques.
Yeah, I like that. I love just, I mean, this is like just Jack in the Box as an essence, right? It's just like, I love the fucking lottery uniques, where I just love the idea of just like, again, just some, Johnny No Build fucking in Kansas on his first Path of Exile day, and just drops a Headhunter, like, in Act 4, and he's just like, this seems cool, and he just vendors it. Like, that to me, that is like the quintessential Path of Exile. That's the dream right there. I would love to see that happen, and I just think more things like that, more anecdotal experiences of like, my friend got a mirror and he used it on a white wand, like that's, like, I want to hear that type of thing happen, because that's like, you're like rooting for the underdog, like go get your Headhunter in Act 2, buddy,
It makes the experience so unique when you're running, like when you're starting a league and early on you find like this huge unique, like something like a Squire now, and your league suddenly completely changes.
Like
1,000
doors open up around you, basically.
Yeah, exactly, right? I guess this.
I think we've all had it happen. Like, what is what's an example for you, Manny, where like you got something you just didn't deserve really early on, like, and it just opened up all the opportunities.
I mean, Squire and Mage Blood would be the obvious ones. Headhunter too.
Yep. Yeah, it just that feeling is like, indescribable. I mean,
I guess Badge or like Asenet's Touch, those are really up there too, because they're insanely rare and insanely strong.
Has that happened to you, Shaq, at all? Yeah.
The first unique that I ever chanced from a base item in PoE was a Skyforce.
That'll do it.
Skills, back when Volspark was like incredible, but before I knew what Volspark was, that was the first unique I ever chanced in PoE.
Yep.
And I just had no idea what to do with it. I wore it until I was like, well, this doesn't feel that good, and I just vendored it.
Oh my god. Oh my god. How do I kick someone from the call? Yeah, I mean but that's the perfect thing. Yeah.
Like, was it just on your filter and that's why you chanced it?
Yeah, no, it's just like, it showed up on the filter as like a big gong sound or whatever it was, like a huge thing, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I just had chance orbs, and I was literally just looking for a pair of boots to wear in maps, and I threw it on that base and Skyforce. But it was like, we're talking like brand new to PoE.
Yep.
I see.
Or in terms of brand new to like I kind of build making, yeah. Yep.
That's amazing. That's living the dream right there. That's the Ray class stream.
It is.
So the last couple of things we'll talk about, I guess, is just what are, Scourge got delayed. We have the new league and a new expansion coming out. Expansion being the Atlas, whatever sort of re-edition they're doing or rearranging, something with mapping. And then we have the league itself. Do you guys have any expectations at all? Or any guesses or any things you'd like to see in the upcoming expansion or league?
I mean, the league is going to be something pretty small, I think.
Yep.
It's going to be like a ritual kind of league, this pretty basic mechanic that you're gonna see through after a day, and you've seen it all. And the focus is gonna be in the expansion next league. But what the expansion will be, probably something that replaces Cirrus. That's what most people expect. You know, Cirrus becomes a fragment boss. That's what people expect, but who knows? And then a new type of boss and sub bosses like the Guardians or Conquerors takes his place to guide us through the Atlas, but who knows?
Do you think it'll be in the same vein as like Maven's like an eldritch space baby, you know, floating around? I think it'll be something like that same vein of creature, maybe like a bigger, like her older brother, Mark the boss.
Yeah, Elder, Maven, and Mark. I like that. Yeah. Because I think they've. If I'm remembering the little bit of lore that I've kept up on correctly, I believe she's like confirmed to be tied to about the same level or kind of place or origin as Shaper and Elder. So I would assume they would keep that going. Maybe even introduce, you know, maybe this is like they're gonna set up Elder, Maven, and then maybe 2 more in-game bosses to be kind of the guardians of whoever's the end-game boss in PoE 2.
Interesting.
So,
very fascinating.
Yeah. As far as League go, I have no expectations. My big hope is just that they, rather than taking the new defensive things and kind of nerfing armor, I would hope they would bring up evasion and energy shield a little bit. I'm worried about that when.
Add that to,
but, you know,
I'm gonna add that to the. We're gonna talk about that next. Nerfs and buffs. I almost forgot to add it.
Yeah.
But yeah, to that point, I much like Manny said, I expect the league itself to be quite small. Previously, it was Metamorph, then Ritual. They're very minimal in their scope and engagement. We'll probably know most about it in a couple days. Even going in blind, to probably experience the majority of the mechanic. Expansion. If Cirrus just becomes a fragment boss, and then we get some new thing, that'd be cool too. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like what can they even do to maps to make it. What's like a spicy thing? I'm trying to think. I don't even know.
Did you see the theory that they're gonna squish all the, like, part of the theory with the endgame that I've seen floated around a lot is that they're gonna squish all of the, maybe squish is the wrong word, but all of the Atlas passes are gonna be combined into one big one.
Oh, like one big tree?
Yeah, basically. So every single map will be affected by the Atlas passes you choose.
That
I can't tell if that
makes sense.
is the worst or best thing I've ever heard.
I think it's all about how they implement it.
Yeah, so probably the worst.
If we just like, you know, it's like my biggest problem now is that all the things I give a shit about are in Lyra or Hamtown. Like, that's it. Like, Haywork and Lyra has like the best stuff for everything I care about. And it has been the case for some time, to where I'm like having to always make concessions where it's like, oh, I definitely need to have Expedition in Lyra. I can't not have Heist, but then I also want Bestiary, and I also, you know, want Invasion, and it's just like I want everything in that area. And if it was like I could not put points in Valdos and forget it ever existed and just get more points in Lyra, I'm all for that if that's the case.
I mean,
fight.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, that's like the idea that was originally kind of floated by GGG, which was partially accomplished with the Atlas Passive Trees, was to be able to customize your content. And especially after they removed a few and it kind of adjusted a few, it now feels like you just want more, like the content that you do get to customize and run toward a little bit. Some of it's so much better than the others that you just don't run any other, you know, like you said, we just ignore for the most part 2 zones of the Atlas. But I would hope there would be a little bit more of a way to like hyper focus. Like maybe you get a little bit of a bonus if you want to run like 3 or 4 different league types in your maps.
Yeah.
But maybe you can get a huge, you know, maybe you get 2 extra essences or 3 extra essences a zone if you want to just purely see essences all the time. But
for sure, that sounds like it could be the route. I would like to see a centralized tree where it's just we get to figure out what we want, and
if it's done right, it could be good.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming they don't change this like Maven structure of the regions and the regional trees, I really hope that they do another rebalance of the passives.
Yeah.
Just to mix it up a little, because I mean, some examples like Breach feels really bad right now, or a Metamorph. Has anyone even taken those passives?
Well, I take the Metamorph, but I'm an outlier for
right.
I'm 700 Metamorph Stride, but I'm, you know.
Yep.
I hope they keep the balance up, just like skill balance. You know, if something is overused or underused, just nerf it or buff it to keep that fresh. Because I feel like maybe I'm a bit biased because I play so much endgame and for so long, but having diversity in like the endgame balance and what content you do is just as important as builds, maybe even more important to me.
To that point, I wish that Unmaking Orbs dropped about 10 times as frequently, or there was a recipe for them.
Yeah.
Because I would love to move stuff around, but realistically, Unmaking Orbs only drop from the top, like the higher end invitations. And it's just the amount they drop is so shit compared. Like we just got that recipe for Divine Vessel, like the Divine Orb plus 5 flasks. We could easily have one with like 5 regrets and a Divine Orb gets you 5 Unmakings, and I would do that all the time. Like, and I would move shit around every day, and I would have a great time. But like the inaccessibility of those is brutal.
True.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still hoping that maybe this next expansion is just going to blow our minds. Like, maybe it's going to rework things completely in some way that we're not expecting.
I hope my ass just falls out underneath me. Yeah.
We're just expecting this, Cirrus becomes Fragment Boss and someone new swoops in, but the structure stays the same.
That's where I think a lot of it becomes like they're only really building and working new mechanics that are going to be implemented in Path 2, and things that were done prior to that are probably just going to fall to the wayside. Like, the closer we get to Path 2, I think the more Path 1 will suffer as far as attention. It's like, it's like the parent is, they've had the child and they're having a new kid, so the firstborn is like, pushed to the side for a little bit. I think that's going to keep happening. I
haven't talked to my 8-year-old in like 3 years, so yeah, I get it.
He's probably still in the basement
100%.
somewhere. To talk about his 8-year-old, buffs and nerfs. What do you guys guesses? I have
suppression.
So that's my number one is suppression. I think there's always the thing where it's like, what do you think is going to be nerfed, and what do you think they're going to nerf? Because these things seldom line up for me. Where it's like, I don't really think that Saboteur needs to be nerfed. I think maybe just tweaking the numbers on like Seismic Trap would be enough. But I think they're going to gut Sab. And I don't think that's the right choice at all. But I think that's what they're going to do. I don't think they really have to, totally annihilate Grace and Determination. But I think they're going to do that. I think there's a couple things like that probably exist. But spell suppression is the only one I think that they're going to change and I think needs to be changed. And they could just make it like 35% or 40% of the damage instead of 50%. But
maybe get the glancing blows route. Yeah.
It's so easy to get cap spell suppression now that it's like kind of crazy that on half the builds I'm playing, I'm just like, oh, I've got spell suppression. That's it.
The only problem with suppression I have is that it trivializes bosses so much. Like if you've done a Maven with suppression, you can just literally face tank the spells, and it's just a bit too strong for bosses. But
what they could do, to that point, what they could do is they could just add suppression penetration to a lot of boss abilities. The same way that like you really like, not that you can't tank Shaper Balls, but there's things that have 20% pen, or they had 25% pen, whatever it is, and a lot of builds that still just one shots you. Like that just blows right through your defenses. So if it just give bosses a form of suppression penetration, I think that probably solves a lot of it. But yeah, what skills do you think are going to be? We're not even going to talk about the fucking Mantra Flames, Bone Shattered. That's just like that's obviously going to be.
I'm a huge outlier.
DD Ignite, okay.
Like I don't know exactly why it's suddenly so OP. Like something about DD having crazy high base damage, right? Because it's percentage based, so it's like way higher than any normal spell would be, and your ignites are like 10 or 100 times higher. I don't even know how much, but like absurdly high. That's most likely going to see some. I don't know why it only became big like halfway through the league, to be fair, because it's not like they changed Monster Life, right?
No, this happens with like golems didn't get touched for 4 leagues, and then one league everyone was playing golems out of nowhere. It just kind of happens sometimes, Some builds just pick up.
That made the build a bit more convenient. Maybe that's everything. Maybe that already caused like the big change, but I feel like it probably would have been fine before that already. It just wasn't on the table yet.
Yeah, I think DD is definitely one thing. DD, I think Seismic, I think will probably get touched. It just has a fuck ton of flat, and I think they're probably going to chunk it or maybe add a higher cooldown or something to it. But that just has it. I think they actually might touch all the Fizz spells, to be honest, to a degree. Not that I don't think they need to be. I just think that a lot of them are really strong base damage.
Yep.
Well, that's just. I mean, I think we've come full circle in that, where it's like it used to always be like, oh, get a bunch of Fizz, make it elemental, and I think we went away from that for a little bit. I think we're coming right back to that, where it's like, I mean, whether it's like last year we had the shield throw, it's like the same fucking thing. Get a bunch of Fizz, make it cold. Like it just seems like the best route yet again for most everything.
Yeah. So since you asked like what do I hope that get changed, and what will get changed? What will they change?
Yeah.
I hope they only nerf these like a few outliers like Seismic and DD
Yep.
in smart ways that only touches them, and then also bring up some of the lesser played skills to a similar level. Is that gonna happen? I don't know. Probably not. It's difficult, and they're not exactly. They don't have a good record of doing that.
Except for Forbidden Right totems, that was the only time recently I think they've done it.
True, that was a good targeted nerf.
But to be fair, if you played Darkback totems, your build got ruined. But aside from that,
yeah,
that was a clean one, but like 1 in 1,000. I mean, statistically. Yeah. What do you think, Shaq?
Yeah, no, it's you're on. The thing I like, so a good example would be Tarky. Tarky's video from the other day had a good suggestion of like, you know, for traps, traps look so good going into this league that a lot of the masteries look like they were intentionally toned down, the trap masteries, where you could do something like an obvious trap mastery would be like the cooldown trap, basically buffing the cooldown specific traps, because you can nerf Seismic and then make the other ones that have cooldown, like Flamethrower trap is freaking awesome.
Oh, it's so cool. I love it.
If you do, and it's so close to a build that I want to try, but it's just with a mastery would help so much.
Yep.
So I think there's smart ways to do it. I'm a little worried about the implementation. But some of the things that concern me are like, you just get, it's like, I don't like the feeling that I'm scared being comfortable with a build now. Yeah. It's like, if it feels too good, like that should be a good feeling, but instead it's like a dreadful,
I'm like, gonna get fucked in 2 months.
I'm like, I'm scared to search for cool skills that I like on YouTube now, because I'm like, if someone puts out a video on how smooth it is to level Wintertide brand, like I don't even want to say it on the podcast. I'm like, are they gonna set a minimum amount of activations needed for the brands to jump now? Or are they gonna double the, from 0.3 to 0.6 seconds? Like, it's like, no, this should just be a comfortable skill to level, and I'm terrified of stuff like that. Well, it's frustrating feeling scared of every fun build.
There's like a couple memes that I've been perpetuating when it comes to like their balance team, and one is like, I think that it's a blindfolded man in the dark throwing darts at like a board, and the other is I think that the last week of Reddit every league, I think that just gets scoured for builds, and whatever pops up is what they nerf. Like it truly feels random, and you'd think that if we all talk to a bunch of people, that someone's opinion would eventually align with what their decisions were, because everyone has different opinions. So eventually someone's going to be like, oh yeah, I agree with all the changes they made. But I've never met that person. It's never been the case where I've met someone's like, oh yeah, every nerf and buff they made sense to me. It's always been like, what the fuck is happening over there? And that's why I'm always confused. Yeah. And it's not like there's tons of builds to play. You could always play different stuff. There's never a shortage of things you can do. But I just feel like some of these changes, I'm like, either I'm not seeing the big picture, or I'm missing something obvious. Where, when they nerf like Bleed Bow got nerfed like tremendously. Like, when did this happen and why? And a lot of it's just like them doing brain surgery with a fucking mallet, and you're just trying to figure out things getting hit as a byproduct is the biggest offense. That's why when they nerf Seismic, I'm hoping they just do like a mastery change, like you're saying, right, and it equals out to where other things get buffed and it becomes basically in line with what it was. But my fear is Saboteur gets removed from the game. Like that's what I think the reality is.
Yeah. What I did enjoy this patch was the defense buffs in general.
Oh, they're great.
Like, it feels way better now that like no matter what build I'm playing, it doesn't even have to be a build that is insanely powerful and can invest a lot into defenses. Like any build can do enough defenses to feel a lot nicer now.
Yeah.
And I hope we stay on that level and they don't nerf that as much. Maybe even bring up some of the underused defenses like ES.
I've run Grace. I've run Grace and Pure Developments on like half the builds I played this league, and they just feel so good.
As somebody who is well known for playing almost exclusively the top about a quarter of the tree in ES builds, it's like I'm interested to see even more than the skills. I want to see what changes they make, if any, because having 1,700 passives reworked, that should be a huge focus for like keeping an eye on what's being used, what should be moved elsewhere. Like to me, just on a personal level, there's two life recoup wheels that are combined, not as far away. Like they don't take as long to get both recoup wheels for life as it does to get Soul Thief, which is 2% ES on kill in the ES wheel. Like you have to go fully into the evasion side of the tree for it. Yep. So there's some interesting decisions that I'm not upset about where they are in terms of it's a brand new tree. It's literally 1,700 passives. I want to see if I really hope they don't just completely not change any, like do any passive rebalancing because it's brand new. But yeah, ES hopefully will get just a tiny, I don't think it needs that much, just a little bit of love, because currently the best way to play Energy Shield is to get to armor or evasion as quickly as you possibly can. So yeah, the armor specifically, I would hope that maybe with determination they would just make it maybe like increased instead of more, and work on the other defenses instead of just nerfing armor.
To your point, I don't think I've played an ES build, whether CI or I don't think I played hybrid in a like while, where I just felt safe at all. Like it's been so rough. Like
with determination now, it's insane the difference between this league and last league. Before this league, like our typical like fizz reduction in an energy shield build was around 0%. Like literally, you didn't have any armor. Yeah. You would try to get like 3 endurance charges to get 12%.
Yeah, that's about it.
And now it's like I have the POB I have right now for cold dot has like 100. It can take a 20k fizz hit as like its max hit. So it's gotten a lot better, but it's better because the best way to play ES is to stack as much armor as you can, and then just weird. Fill it in. Yeah, I would hope that gets a little bit of a
little backwards. Yeah. I mean, I think these are all good predictions, and hopefully probably none of them are come true.
Yep.
Any last things?
Instead of balancing the skills, they're probably just gonna add another 60 new skills. That's probably what's gonna happen, right?
Yeah, I can't wait to use tether. Link me, Poppy. I just can't wait. God, top 10 abilities never used, really. All right, cool. I'm sure someone's linking out there and having a great time.
The links are used in group play.
How dare you play with players?
Like the 5-man groups or something running with supports, they use them.
5-man groups don't matter, though. That's an unregistered demographic. No one has 4 of their friends. Nobody.
True.
Not a single human being. Any last thoughts on whatever? Anything last topics you want to bring up?
Don't
all talk at once.
Well,
nothing comes to mind immediately except I'm hopeful that this break doesn't. There's going to be a lot of backlash if they take an extra 2 weeks and there's basically anything wrong anything like obviously wrong with the new league. And for GGG's sake, like I said, I generally am pretty positive. I don't really have an issue with. I'm glad that they gave them their developers more time off.
Yep.
But I'm nervous about the absolute dumpster fire that's going to happen with pretty much everyone outside of the reasonable streamer community if there's basically any issue on launch. So.
Yep. Just don't look at Reddit.
There will be issues.
Yep.
Just a bunch of.
At this point, there's always going to be negativity.
Bunch of babies screeching in the sun. Yeah, I mean you can't. It's hard. It's obviously hard, but I think to that point, the only issues I'll say don't mind, but the only ones I blanket excuse are like technical or server issues. Is not because of the league or development time. Yep. That's because their infrastructure shit, and that's a whole other problem. But as long as if like. Not that Ultimatum it wasn't like amazing, but at least like at least Ultimatum worked whenever it started. Like,
yeah,
I don't mind that as much. It's just kind of like you have to sit back and laugh when the game doesn't work for the first day, and expect very little in the first week. It's never been the case but there's not many games that work in the first week fully anyway. So it's like the benchmark is, it's not them. It's just all games now. I think to that degree, it's hard.
Give it an next.
What?
Given like an extra 2 weeks for the league, do you think we're going to get patch notes again the day of the reveal?
Maybe. It's a good question. Well, actually, something we didn't even talk about, which is a whole other can of worms, is that Scourge only received 1 patch, which was
the communication promise and then the follow up. This is one of the biggest issues I've ever had with PoE.
Yeah.
Like in 7 years of playing, I had such a feel bad this league with like we're going to communicate more, and then hearing nothing for
2 months. Yeah, it was just crazy. It was kind of crazy. Truly was the most abandoned league in all of Path of Exile. Like where it's like, all right, we got 1 buff weekend.
Mm-hmm.
See you in fucking February. That's it.
Yep.
That was pretty much it. So hopefully this next couple, I think most of their eggs in the short term updates are in this current basket that will be revealed in a couple weeks, and we'll be doing another Unique Boys podcast. Then I know these are very close, but
that will be an interesting one.
Wait for this reveal. It's gonna be something. It's gonna be that'll be a 4 or 5 hour one. Got to break out my diaper for that one. Got to break in some MREs.
Yeah. Don't use up your MRE too quickly.
I've got 4. I got a box full of them. Someone mailed me a bunch. Shout out to Eason in chat. I'm gonna shit my pants and think of you because of those. One of them is this beef burrito that's just gonna wreck me. I could.
Oof.
Yeah,
That's good.
it doesn't sound good. Don't say that.
That seems intentional.
Yeah, I know that when I read out the names of some of them in chat, I know people who are a couple of guys who watch me are like in the active military, and 3 of them gasped when I said one of them, and I was like, oh, that's good. They're like, oh no, don't eat that, and I was like, oh, fantastic. Like it won't kill you, but you will never leave the bathroom, so that's good. Any closing thoughts? You just want to like, how about you want to plug yourself, Manny, before I plug you?
Plug me?
I'll plug you.
Well, what am I gonna do for the next weeks? You mean? I'm
whatever.
gonna keep playing Scourge for a bit more. I'm gonna hunt those chase uniques and waiting for the new league on Twitch TV/Manni2. That's where I am.
Manni2. Where's the first Manni?
I'm really excited for this announcement.
Where's the original Manni? You're the knockoff.
Well, I don't know. Manni is taken. Manni was taken. Manni 1 wasn't taken. But
when's the last time you checked the name checker?
Been a while.
What is it? Manni?
Yeah.
Manni. I am a human. Thank you, cat. Oh, I'm doing a captcha now. Bicycle. Hold on. Bicycle. What is that last one?
This is an RNG layer.
Check username availability. No, it's not available. What? Manni 1. No.
I don't want 1.
Manni 3. No.
After Manni comes Manni 2, right? There's no Manni 1.
This is all just you're just setting yourself up for PoE 2.
Manni Baby works.
Yeah.
You want to be Manni? Manni Baby?
I'll think about it.
Okay, good. All right, Shaq. What about yourself? You got stuff?
I'm pretty much ShakCentral everywhere on Twitch, on Twitter, pretty much everywhere. I am still going to be working on leading up to the new league. We've kind of taken on this project. I've been calling it the class build project. And basically, what I enjoy the most, aside from collecting uniques, is helping new players. So we're working on kind of the sequel to a cold dot build, which is like 6 new builds. We're trying to make a new player focused build for every class. So no matter what, when new players come in, they have a way to go. So we're in the middle of planning for that right now. I basically haven't streamed PoE content outside of the week leagues in like 2 months. I've been streaming POB. So
fun.
It's been fun. We're covering trying to cover as much as I can, like covering all 5 damage types in those 7 classes, trying to cover bows, melee, spellcasters, all that. So
this is reminiscent of what I'll be doing next week, which is making my build wheel. The worst decision I make every league. I gotta make 21 builds and spin it, and then get some pile of shit. Although beautiful. This is last league was the first league, or the Scourge, where I didn't get a pile of shit. I got Scourge Arrow. I got Toxic Rain, sorry.
Yeah, Toxic Rain, yeah.
Yeah, but prior to that was Reaper, so I've hit truly the dregs. But yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching or listening, anybody. In a couple weeks, we'll have this just the day after they do the reveal. So whether it's that Thursday or Friday, they do the reveal. We'll have a new one afterwards. Legi will probably be back. He had to step away from family matter. Iron just fucking doesn't want to play Path anymore, so that's fine. He'll be back eventually, probably next league. And Easy, I think, was partying in Vegas or something. So we'll see. And Shaq will probably be back again, if not next week or whatever, just sometime, whether he likes it or not. So yeah, that's it. We're done. I wouldn't go home. I'm gonna stop recording now.